This meeting is being recorded.
Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Saturday. Welcome to the Mind Launch Workshop. I'm Josh Holiday, if you don't already know me. And over the next 3 hours, we're going to be going into how to rewire your anxiety into calm, clarity, and control. And so I've got an awesome presentation planned for you guys today. I was up last night putting the finishing touches on the slides, and also this morning actually before I came into the office here, I was at home kind of just putting the final touches on everything. So yeah, there's a monster session prepared for today. There's going to be heaps of freebies. There's going to be heaps of little uh, breaks for activities. We're actually going to do the work live. So a couple of things as housekeeping before we get into it. I would suggest that you have, maybe water or coffee or tea or something like that on hand. Definitely a pen and paper to take notes, because, like I said, we're actually going to be going through and doing the work today. Like I'm going to guide you guys through some frameworks, through some practices, through some exercises my intention is to help you actually have a shift on this call, to help you to actually uh, find this extremely valuable, to give you some insight and some clarity into, why you might be stuck in whatever recurring loops of thinking, feeling, or behaving that are occurring in your life, right? Whatever the results are that you're having in your life that maybe aren't the ones that you want to be having. We're going to actually look at that today and we're going to work on it today. So make sure you have a pen and paper handy so that you can take notes and yeah, get the most out of this. So, quick intro on me. If you don't already know me, my name's Josh Holiday, and I'm the founder of Mind Launch. And a lot of people always ask me, like, how did you get into this, Josh, and kind of what, you know, how long have you been doing it? And like, they want to know a little bit about me. So I'm going to give you guys a quick intro. Most of you would have probably found me from Instagram. My Instagram account is actually suspended right now, and it's the third time that it's happened this week. So this week has been a pain in the ass for me, honestly, because I do make a lot of my videos on Instagram. I run a lot of ads on Instagram. And so I can't access it for the third time now. The second, it's not a problem because the first two times the account got reinstated, and whatever they're suspending my account for is just bullshit because they're reinstating me every time. But it must be that their AI is like flagging my account for some reason. And anyway, I've appealed the suspension twice, and it's got reinstated both times. But anyway, I got it back last night again, and then it happened again like straight away. So anyway, Instagram account's down, but that's not really that important. Quick backstory on me. When I was 17, I had this kind of existential crisis that made me very anxious. I had a lot of fear. I was afraid of like these events that I knew were going to happen in my life that would be emotionally distressing. So for whatever reason, I went through this period of like thinking about how my parents might, die at some point and how I might, and how, it's like I was going to face all these challenges in life. And back then, that scared me as a teenager. It just scared me, honestly, and made me really question like my, capacity to handle these things. And I was asking myself questions like, what's going to happen if anything bad does happen? And am I going to be able to handle that? And back then, I really felt like I wasn't able to handle that. Now, we also have a history of addiction in my family, and, mental health issues. And when I was a kid or when I was a teenager, I just didn't want to go down the same path. Like I didn't want to become reliant on alcohol or medication or drugs or anything like that. I saw that in my family, and I saw the kind of negative outcomes that created for our family. And I just really didn't want to have that in my life. And so when I was 17, I started to look into self-development. I started to look into spirituality. I started to look into meditation because I wanted to figure out how to get control of my own mind, because back then, again, I felt like I didn't have control. I was at the whim of my desires, of my impulses, right? I couldn't control myself with the drinking, or sometimes I would be people pleasing, or in relationships, I was always the nice guy trying to keep everyone else happy. But it always just left me feeling just kind of like a mess. And I just knew that there had to be more to life. And I knew that I had more potential, that I could live a life where I'm actually happy, where I'm actually healthy, where I'm actually able to control my mind, where I'm able to, manage my emotions better. And so, yeah, I set out on this journey to kind of figure all of that out. And that was 15 years ago now. And honestly, for the first 10 years, it was just my own personal practice. Like I didn't tell anyone that I was doing self-development. I didn't tell anyone that I was into like meditation or spirituality, because it was very personal for me. And I still felt like I wasn't comfortable talking about it. It was like my private little thing that I did for myself. And that went on for about 10 years. So from 17 till about 27, it was just a personal thing. And I actually never thought that I would do it as a career. I literally did not think that I would be doing this as a career. But then there was a certain series of events that happened around like 2020 with COVID and stuff, where I was out of work. I was in Sydney, working in Sydney when COVID happened, and then I left Sydney in Australia. I think most of you are from Australia. And yeah, I left Sydney to come back to where I was born, which is Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast. And so anyway, I was out of a job. And a few things just started to align, where I ended up going on this meditation retreat. And then I went on a teacher training to do meditation. And then I started teaching classes, and then I started teaching workshops, and I started teaching courses, and I started coaching. And over the last 5 years, I've just built this this business and this career for myself, which is never anything that I thought I would do. But like I said, back then, it just stars started to align, and it made perfect sense because I had already been practicing personally for 10 years. And so the next natural evolution was to start helping others with the skills that I had already learned for myself, and that had worked so well for me. And so that's kind of how I got into this. And yeah, over the years, I've managed to get my drinking under control. When I was in my 20s, I had problems with drinking. I got that all under control. I'm sober. I learned to manage my emotions and my anxiety. I've got a really good handle on my mind. My mind doesn't scare me anymore. Whereas there was a time when it did. It used to scare me, my own mind. That doesn't happen anymore. And I'm a lot more disciplined, and I'm a lot more I would say, like, strong within myself and my mind. And so that's what I'm planning to teach you guys today. Everything that I've learned over the last 15 years about how to create a strong mind, a clear mind, and a calm mind as well. And then the natural flow on effect is that starts to go into your body as well. We have this mind-body connection, which I'm going to talk about today. But that's a bit of a brief overview of me. So thank you guys for being here. I've got an awesome session planned for you today. If you've just rolled in, I can see we've got Allison, we've got Erin, we've got Glenn, we've got Mark, we've got Pandora, a few other people rolling in. Welcome, everybody. What we're going to talk about today is, we're going deep to a 3-hour workshop. I'm going to run you guys through the entire mind launch method, which I kind of told you guys the backstory of like the last 10 to 15 years of my own personal story. In the last 5 years, I've built Mind Launch, right? I've helped over 300 people through this business. I've got over 50 5-star reviews on Google. And over the last 5 years, I've really refined a system that is proven to get results, right? And it's different from probably things that you've tried before, because it's not really the normal or traditional approach to mental health, right? Often we're told to go to therapy, or to take the medication, or whatever else we're kind of sold that we need to do. And don't get me wrong, sometimes those things can be helpful. Talking about your problems can be helpful to an extent. It can provide you some temporary relief. I've worked with a lot of people who have done therapy. I've worked with a lot of people on medication as well. So that can also be a temporary solution. It's just not really the best long-term solution, because it's not actually going to help you heal and get better and get to where you want to be. It's more of like a band-aid solution. And I think people are starting to become really, really aware of that now. And so anyway, the mind launch method is a 3-step system: regulate the nervous system, reprogram the mind, and then have this reset in your identity, where you get back to yourself, where you get back to living the life that you really want. So that regulate phase we're going to talk about today, it's about the body, it's about the nervous system, and then we've got the reprogram, which is about the mind. And the mind and the body, they're one system, right? They're not two separate systems. People treat their mental health and their physical health different. They're the same system. Your mind and your body are connected. So we talk about that in regulate and reprogram, which leads us to the reset. And so I'm going to cover the full system for you today. I've also got, you guys should have received a free ebook when you signed up for this, the Mind OS ebook. Who's got that one? Just type in the chat box. Give me a 111 if you've received the ebook. And if you had a chance to look at it, just let me know in the chat box. And another thing with that chat box, if you have any questions today, if anything that I say, you have a question about it or you want further clarification, just drop it into the chat box and I'll answer those questions. I'll make sure I get to them, okay? Cool, Glenn. Yeah, you've got the ebook. Awesome. Yeah, that's a really solid ebook, guys. Honestly, that is a huge, huge thing. If you take it seriously, in Mind Launch, right? Clients pay me thousands of dollars for coaching, and that ebook is literally the full system. It's the full course, right? I've just kind of given it to you. So you print that out. That's the full system. You've already got it. Right? I gave it to you, or as soon as you signed up for this thing. And so it's the intention is that you can move through that over 12 weeks, right? There's 12 modules, 12 weeks, regulate, reprogram, reset. So I highly recommend you take that document seriously and print it out because it's a very valuable resource. Now, today we're also going to look into a few other resources I've got, because I've got a couple of kind of fun things that I want to run you guys through today. And I will also be sharing an opportunity to work with me if you would like that as well, right? And I'll get to that shortly. I'll send you guys the details. You can have a read through everything whilst we're on this call. I'm not gonna build it up until the very end and go, oh, okay, now here's this thing. I'll share it with you guys in a few slides time. But I'm just doing the intro now. So with all that being said, I think we can actually get stuck into it. Actually, one more thing before we get into it. I always like to encourage you to take a second to pause and be intentional with how you're living your life. And so to be intentional, it really means to be conscious, right? And to be aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And so the question I have for you, which I would love to hear in the comments or in the chat box before we start today, is why are you here? What's your intention for being here? 3 hours is a good amount of time. You guys have taken time out of your day to be here with me, and I take that seriously. I would love to know from you, what's your intention from being here? And you can just let me know in the chat box. What's your intention for being here? And if you haven't even thought about that yet, well, this is why we're here, right? This is the opportunity. Have a chance to think about it. What do you intend to get out of this? What's your intention for being here today? Because you're not just here because you want to listen to me talk for 3 hours, right? I'm sure that that's not the case. You're probably here for a reason. So let's just check in and ask yourself, what is that reason? Why am I here? And if you feel like dropping it in the chat box, then that will be cool. All right. Don't be shy. All right, let's go. I'm sure those intentions will come through. Take a second to think about it, right? Because it's an important question to ask, and it's how you're actually going to get, like I said, I don't want to just talk at you for the next 3 hours. I want you to, if you're going to be here with me, I want to make sure that you get something out of it. So starting to ask yourself these questions is really important. And there's a quote that I really love about learning, and it says, "Tell me and I'll forget. Teach me and I might remember. Involve me and I will learn." So the idea is if me just talking at you is you probably just forget half the things I say, right? But if you get involved with the process, this is how you're going to learn, and your brain is going to switch on, and you're going to be actually here with me. And this is how you're going to learn. This is how you're going to actually get results. So awesome. Cool. How to manage anxiety. We want to learn about controlling anxiety to learn and help myself take control of my anxiety and agoraphobia. Okay, cool. Awesome. Sweet, guys. We're definitely going to help with that today. So here's how to rewire your anxiety into calm, clarity, and control. This is the Mind Launch workshop. And here's just an overview of what we're going to cover today, right? I'm going to give you an introduction to Mind Launch and our results, which I've kind of already done. I'm going to tell you the reason you're still stuck in a loop. I'm going to give you the neuroscience of anxiety and how it affects the mind and the body. I'm going to walk you through the complete 3-step Mind Launch method, which is regulate, reprogram, and reset. Again, you've got that ebook. That ebook is probably something that would be handy to have on hand as we go through this, especially when we get to this section, because you'll be able to kind of take notes and that'll be really helpful. We're also going to go through a live breakthrough exercise. So I'm going to guide you guys through an exercise that I do with a lot of my one-on-one coaching clients. And then I'm going to talk to you about how to get more support, and we'll do a live Q&A at the end. So again, as I mentioned, if you have any questions throughout this workshop, just drop them in the chat box and I'll make sure to take a note of them, and I'll definitely get to them by the end of the workshop. So that's that. Introducing Mind Launch. All right. Now, at the end of 2025, I analyzed the outcome of 30 clients who completed my coaching program. And here are the average results. So what I did with every person that I work with, I take a success scale. So I measure, okay, where are you at when we start working? So let's say one of the things that you guys obviously want to work on is anxiety. Let's say your anxiety is like an 8 or a 9 out of 10 right now, or it's been very high recently, which is quite common for people who come to work with me, right? By the end of the program, after analyzing 30 clients who actually completed the program, and I say that because it's really necessary that you do complete the program, right? If you want to have the results, you've got to complete the full program. These results are from people who completed the program, right? So anxiety, 72% average reduction. So that's like going from a 9 out of 10 to a 2 out of 10. Nervous system regulation, 55% average improvement. So it's like going from a 3 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10, right? Identity and self-worth, 72% average improvement. Inner peace and well-being, 70% average improvement. Confidence, 72% average improvement. Mental clarity, 70% average improvement. And emotional regulation, 91% average improvement. Now, those numbers are huge. Like if you, and I know it's a small test group, it's only 30 clients, but regardless, those are the results, right? What I did was I took the success scale, which is a measurement of 1 out of 10 for all of these different things. And I basically took 30 of them and I analyzed the data. And I asked actually AI to help me to find the averages and to create a report. Basically, it was just for me. I was curious to see the outcomes that people were experiencing. And so I went over, 30 of the clients and put all the averages in, and this is what it spat out. So this is real data from clients that I've worked with, right? And so it's pretty solid. I'm actually really impressed by this myself. Afterwards, what I did was I went online and I asked like what are the general average results from different modalities like CBT or general mindfulness, medications, and this outperformed everything, right? And now I think that there's some serious reasons why it outperformed everything and why these results are so high. And one of them is because there's a high touch one-on-one coaching, which is proactive. So we're working on making progress and moving forward, which is not what most therapies do. I'm not trying to bag out therapies. I think that it's good, do what you need to do. But I'm just saying, a lot of people that I work with, they'll be like, oh, I've tried mindfulness, or I've tried breath work, or I've tried meditation with my therapist. They said to do some breathing exercises when I get anxious. Now, there's a key point there, which you might glaze over, but I want to mention. Do breathing exercises when you get anxious. That is a reactive approach because you are trying to address the issue when it happens. So this suggests you are reacting to the anxiety or the whatever it is, right? That's and this is why I think breathwork and mindfulness meditation get misunderstood. It's because when you do it with the intention of reacting to the experience, it's like a fix. You're trying to use it as a fix in reaction to an experience. Now, the way that I teach it is completely different. I can teach it as a proactive approach. So we're not waiting until we get anxious to start practicing breathing exercises. We are proactively putting in place a plan to get our mind and body into a nice calm state even before we're anxious. So that when we do get anxious or we get triggered or something happens, we have a stronger baseline. And so again, the reason why I think the results are the way they are is because of that approach, that proactive approach, and also the high touch one-on-one accountability and guidance, from someone who's done it before. Those are the reasons why I think we get those results, right? But yeah, those results are pretty impressive. So if you've signed up to this workshop, chances are you've been living with anxiety for longer than you like to admit. So maybe it shows up as racing thoughts at 3 a.m. or a tight chest when you're trying to relax, or that constant underlying feeling that something's wrong, even when everything's fine. Now, I want you to know something important, and that is you are not broken and there's nothing fundamentally wrong with you. I know if you're really struggling, it can be quite easy to get into these negative spirals or thought loops where you're telling yourself that you're broken, that there's something wrong with you, that you're never going to get better. But that's not true. I really don't believe that's true, right? What you're experiencing is the result of a mind and body that is out of balance and disconnected, right? There's an incoherence between the mind and the body. You're living with subconscious patterns, programs, and protective mechanisms that your mind and body have developed to give you a sense of safety, even when there's no real threat. So people talk a lot about trauma. I try not to use that word so much because it's so charged, but we do have learned behaviors, right? We have learned responses. We have learned coping mechanisms. And for a lot of the time, these are subconscious, so we're not really aware of them, right? So what that actually means is, like, let's say consciously you're aware that there's an issue. A lot of people are very self-aware. You're aware that there's an issue, but that you're not 100% sure why that's happening, or where it comes from, or what's driving it in the first place, right? That's under the surface. It's subconscious. But after working with a lot of people, honestly, there's two camps, right? There is a camp where there is some kind of a conditioning that is creating the experience that you're having. So maybe something happened earlier in your life where you felt very unsafe, and so then you've learned that you're not safe, right? And you've learned to protect yourself in various ways. So anxiety is actually a form of self-protection, because the experience of anxiety is actually like a heightened nervous system, right? So your nervous system's in this fight or flight mode. And that's actually helpful if there is a danger, right? So if you believe fundamentally that there's something to be afraid of, or that you're not safe, anxiety is a kind of a normal response to have, because your body is going into fight or flight and it's preparing to protect itself from something. So that's actually a normal response to have, right? And that can be linked back to stuff that happened earlier in life where you didn't feel safe and you learned that I've got to protect myself, right? And you learn to protect yourself in whatever way. Anxiety, sometimes for some people it's other stuff. It can be it can be kind of people pleasing and external validation. It could, for some people, be drugs, substance abuse, even food, or stuff like that. We all have these little mechanisms that we use to make ourselves feel safe, right? Or hiding, staying inside, like withdrawing from situations, freezing, those kinds of things. Now there is that. There's another camp which is slightly more when you start to enter into like OCD territory. So anxiety and OCD are very similar, right? But OCD is a bit more thought-based. And so with the OCD, what I've found is, yes, it can also be linked to like certain things in childhood or earlier in life, but sometimes the engagement in trying to figure out where the thoughts come from can be worse or not worse, but yeah, lead to worse outcomes than just trying to let go of the thoughts completely, right? Ultimately, and I'll talk about this today, the best thing to learn how to do is to realize that you're not your thoughts in the first place, and you're actually not even your body or your feelings, right? So this is where, meditation, mindfulness, and not just that, but presence becomes so helpful, because when you're truly present, you're actually able to detach or let go of thoughts and emotions and kind of feelings, and you're able to observe them from a higher perspective, or a perspective that isn't so like fused with the thoughts and emotions, right? And when you're able to do that in any case, whether it's anxiety, whether it's OCD, whether it's the childhood trauma, whether it's just intrusive thoughts, when you're able to disconnect from them and be in a state of presence, you're able to kind of let go of the thoughts and the emotions, right? So anyway, let me get back to what I was saying. You're going to see me go on a few of these tangents. I've got to keep myself focused. But the point I'm getting at here is regardless of kind of your specific situation, because everyone is different as well. And that's why the one-on-one coaching is helpful, because I can address, your unique issues. But everyone's living with subconscious patterns, right? Everyone lives with subconscious programs, and everyone lives with these protective mechanisms. No one gets away from that. That's a human thing. All humans have that, right? And if you have a lot of anxiety, it's usually because there's something that your mind and body has developed as a system to keep you safe, even if there's no real threat, right? Now, the problem is these mechanisms have outlived their usefulness and are now holding you back, right? So in my case, I'll give a personal story. I was talking before about when I was a teenager, right? I used to just keep everyone else happy, and I used to people please, and I used to suppress myself. And part of that was because I didn't actually even know really who I was or what I wanted, because I was only a kid, right? I was still developing. But also that was the program that I was running. That was now that I'm a bit older and a bit more aware and a bit more, I've done a lot of work on this. I can see how that was a protective mechanism. I was taking too much responsibility for other people's emotions and feelings. And that was something that I learned when I was younger, right? Because I was taking responsibility for my parents and their stresses and emotions, right? That's a whole nother can of worms. But you see how I'm telling you, this is what I've experienced. And when you look at any person in the world, we all have these learned conditions, right, from our life. So where we are now, here in this room with me today, you're experiencing something, and it's really a big cause of what you're experiencing now is the memory and the conditioning from the past. And so we've got to learn how to let that go. I was talking before about present awareness. We have to stop being run by the past. We have to stop living from a memory of the past. When we become present, we're able to do that. We let go of the past, we become present in the here and now. And we actually have to start to consciously and intentionally, which is why I asked you for your intentions, switch on to a new idea, a new way of thinking, a new way of feeling, right? So we've got to let go of the past, become present, and actually create a new future, right? Now, it's not like that the past is bad. It's not like that the future is good. It's just that we need to create more balance, because if our life we've got a lot of anxiety, we're living as a memory of the past, right? That's why we've got all this anxiety. Not that that's bad. We have to actually address that and look at it and go, okay, cool. This is what's happening. I understand that this is why this is happening. And now I'm choosing to be present, and I'm choosing to create a new future for myself. Okay. Now, I'm going to go into this in a lot more detail today. But if there's any questions at all, again, just let me know in the chat box. You can ask questions, or even just, share your thoughts about all of this. The problem is a lot of these mechanisms have outlived their usefulness and are now holding you back from that calm, clear, and confident life you deserve. So the mechanisms that you've learned as a child, or through your teenage years, or even early 20s kind of thing, a lot of the time people stop growing, right? We don't want to stop growing, because if you stop growing and now you're just living your life as like the version of you who was going through all the shit that was happening when you were a teenager or when you were like early 20s, because your brain's still developing then, right? We have to continue to develop and to grow. A lot of people, I'm sure if you look into your life, you probably know people in your life where you look at them and you're just like, this person's just like kind of stuck as a, and you can almost trace it back to like, man, they just maybe stopped growing when they were like 19 or 20 or 21. And if that happens, if you never allow yourself to grow past, right, these experiences, then you're just gonna keep living a memory of the past. You're gonna stay stuck in this kind of old experience. So over the past 5 years, I've had the privilege of coaching 300 people through this exact journey from chronic anxiety to lasting alignment in life. And I can tell you with complete certainty that transformation, healing, and growth is 100% possible for you. Now, this webinar is going to pull back the curtain on the proven and tested method I've used to transform the lives of my clients. But I want to just take a brief break here. I'm going to try to do this a few times throughout the session because we've got a long session today. When we first started, I asked you what was your intention for being here, right? And there was a few messages that came through around learning to help control anxiety, learning to manage anxiety, learning to control the anxiety. Now, what I want to do right now is I want to challenge you to think differently, right? Instead of trying to manage and control the anxiety and focusing on the problem, let's actually think about where we want to go. So what is your intention, again, for being here, and what do you want to be experiencing? Right? Let's say you go through this workshop, you learn some awesome stuff about yourself, you learn how to manage your anxiety, and you get that under control. What's the experience you're actually moving towards? Because right now, what I've seen in the chat box is I'm moving away from anxiety. I want to know what you're moving towards. So let me know in the chat box, everyone. Let's actually do a waterfall. So let's do a positivity waterfall, or a future self waterfall. And what that means is I'm going to ask everyone to type it into the chat box. What do you want to create more of in your life? And you can put a couple of words, right? A few words, or you can write a sentence. But what do you actually want more of in your life? So you have to think here, not about managing anxiety, but like, what do I want to actually experience more in my life? Not trying to fight against or resist this problem that we're having, but actually starting to attune our mind to what we want. Cool. Epic, Aaron. Freedom, independence. Awesome. What else? Let's go. Waterfall. So what do we want in our life? For me, I want peace, energy, and aliveness. All right. Now, what do you guys want? Let me know. Drop it in the chat box. This is fun. Right? It should be a fun exercise for you to think about the possibilities. I want to feel alive. I want to feel energetic. And I also want to feel peace within myself. Aaron wants to feel freedom and independence. Take a second and write it down. Get involved with this process. What do you want to feel more of? Freedom, more life, return to life. Exactly. Right? This is what we're working towards. And again, I talk a lot about balance, right? So I'm not trying to instill some kind of a one-sided approach to positivity. We're going to address the problems, but we also need to create a more balanced perspective on where are we moving towards, right? Not just what are we moving away from, but also where are we moving towards. This balance is so important, right? Freedom, calmness, peace, joy. Exactly. That's what we want to create, right? And this is all going to make sense soon as well, because I'm going to talk to you about the neuroscience of if you're constantly thinking, like, I often joke about how I'm so sick of talking about anxiety because, you talk about anxiety, fear, all this kind of stuff over and over and over again. It's just, you keep thinking it and it's like, you stay stuck in this kind of, oh, I don't want to keep talking about this anxiety, right? Now we have to address the issue. We're not trying to suppress it, but what we also want to do is we want to create this forward focus. And you'll see with the neuroscience that when you start to actually focus your mind on what you want, and you start to think the way that you want to think, you're going to start to feel the way that you want to feel. You can generate your own thoughts and feelings. There's actually one person in this group, I won't say names, but I can see on the list of names, one person here that actually worked with me a while ago. And he said to me when we started, he goes, I'm not quite sure I understand this concept of creating emotions. Right? He was working with mind launch. He's worked with me before, and he goes, I don't know how to I don't understand. You can create emotions. Yes, You can. I really believe you can. I don't just believe it. I know it. You can, right? It's not something that's up for argument. You can generate different emotional states. And one easy way to know that this is true is by, let's say you give someone a hug, right? When you give your wife or your husband a hug for like 10 seconds, right? Automatically the body starts to release oxytocin, which makes you feel good, right? Or just by, yeah, make a conscious decision, I'm going to give someone a hug. Now, if you don't have anyone to give a hug, you can actually do it to yourself just by placing your hand on your heart and the other hand on your belly, and you can almost give yourself a hug, right? You place your hand on your heart. Let's actually do it now just because it'll be a bit of fun. Take your hand, put it on your heart, take your other hand, put it on your belly, right? And now what I want you to do, if you're okay with it, you don't have to if you don't want to, but I would encourage you to close down your eyes and just start to take a deep breath and breathe into your belly. And then let it go. Exhale, breathe out. Again, take a deep breath, breathing into your belly. So a nice deep breath, not into the chest. Maybe you're used to breathing into your chest. I'm going to ask you to breathe down into your belly. And then let go, relax. And maybe as we start to do this, you notice that there's some resistance, maybe in your body, maybe in your mind. Maybe there's thoughts that are circling in your head around, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Or something like that. Maybe you notice that there's some resistance. That's okay. Just let it be there. Take a deep breath in, breathing into the belly. And exhale, let it go. And on your next breath in, breathing into the belly, but also just pay attention to your heart. Bring your awareness down to the heart, the area where your hand is touching your chest. And see if you can just feel that part of your body. And let go, exhale, let it all go. Take another breath, breathing into the heart. So you're really bringing the awareness down into the heart, feeling the heart space, feeling your hand on your chest, breathing in. And then as you exhale, you just let it all go. You can take another breath here in your own time. Relax your shoulders, relax your jaw, relax everything as you exhale. And then when you're ready, just come back into the room, open up your eyes, and let me know in the chat box, how do you feel? Just a couple of words. How do you feel right now? Cool. Awesome. I'm writing down how I feel as well, right? I feel calm, but I did notice that there was some tension in my shoulders, maybe because I was guiding that, maybe because I wasn't fully present because I was focused on teaching. But I noticed that I felt calm, but I also felt like I was kind of still holding tension in my shoulders. But everyone else is saying lightly relax, relax at peace, relax for sure, light and relax, present. Cool. Boom. You just changed your state, right? You changed how you felt and you changed your emotional state. Very easy. That took us 2 minutes max. Right? So you can change your emotional state. And also notice how right now there's probably not much going on in your head. Or like at least the volume has been turned down. Okay. And just pay attention while we're here. Noticing the volume is turned down in your mind. You're a bit more calm. You're a bit more present. You're a bit more relaxed. Your brain feels kind of like it's had a bit of a relief, probably. Your body feels a bit more relaxed. This is the state that we want to train into your system. Because if you can do it once, which you just did, it's like doing a rep. Right? It's like going to the gym and doing a rep, right? Doing a bicep curl, but for your mind and body as more of an energetic system. And so this is why I say we don't want to react to anxiety and, oh, when I get anxious, then I'll try to do that. You can, and it would be helpful. But imagine how much more helpful it would be if you did that every single day at the start of the day, intentionally. And you said to yourself, today I'm training myself into a relaxed state. I'm actually training myself to be clear and calm in my mind and body. And you did that every single day, sometimes maybe even twice a day. What effect do you think that would have on you over 1 month, 2 months, 3 months? Now, we'll get back into the workshop in a second, but this is probably a good time for me to say, I consider myself to be pretty no bullshit, right? Now, what I've just showed you and shared with you is essentially uh, an overview of the process. Very high level, very simple. But the thing is, you have to do stuff like that every day. And it is like a training schedule, right? It's not something that you can just do once and you feel, oh, I felt pretty good. It's you've literally got to train yourself into it. Now, if you want to heal your anxiety naturally, right, you've got to train your mind and body into this state. You've got to build this operating system within you. That's a daily practice, right? Not because you have to be like disciplined or you have to like, you're not trying to punish yourself into this, but because how good is it to feel like that? Imagine the possibility of a life that felt like that, right? Let that possibility be the thing that drives you. You said you want more peace, you want more aliveness, right? You want more freedom, you want more calmness, you want more joy. That's what everyone said. So you have to let that vision of the future be stronger than the memory of the past. If you guys have looked into Dr. Joe Dispenza, he talks a lot about this kind of stuff, right? He's also like a meditation dude. Um, you have to let that vision of the future and this freedom and this peace and this joy and this relaxation, this state that you want to live in, be more powerful, be more magnetic for you than the past, right? And that's really where the work is. So, where are we next? Like I say, it's not a quick fix. It's not a band-aid solution, right? You did that once, you feel good. But totally transparently, that doing that once on this workshop is not going to fix your problems, right? It's just not. Yeah, you gotta apply some effort and intention and kind of consistency, right? Now, when you do that, what I'm giving you is a comprehensive system for rewiring your mind, regulating your nervous system, and creating sustainable change in your life. Right? Now, being in this room doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. The things I'm about to teach you are going to help you go from good to great. So maybe your life is like, you think, yeah, it's all right, things are going pretty well. We want to go from good to great, right? And you're going to leave this workshop with a roadmap to get your life back and become unshakable within the next 3 months and beyond, right? So, a couple of reviews from people who have worked with me just because proof. Now, I don't know, unfortunately, that picture's not there, but it's a picture of Kylie. Kylie started with me because she was experiencing constant anxiety. Her nervous system and body were not able to cope with everyday tasks. Now, Kylie is so crazy. I keep learning new things about Kylie. She's actually still working with me. She used to be on the Australian women's football team. And she competed, I think, I don't know if she competed at the Olympics, but she ran the torch for the Olympics here in Australia. I think when it was I think it might have been 2000 or something, or back whenever we had the Olympics here in Australia. She's got a torch of the bloody Olympics in her house. So she's a very capable person, right? But she hit this point in her life when she was in her 50s where she just got floored by anxiety. right? Something happened. She had a traumatic event that triggered all of this stuff. And that's when she started working with me, right? And so, she's still working with me now just because she wants to continue to progress and make, positive changes. But she has completely overcome that. She was debilitated. She went from being high functioning to not being able to even get out of bed and make herself breakfast and do her teeth and stuff like that. That's what she was like when she first started with me. But now it's completely changed, right? She stayed engaged, and she's changed her mindset, her awareness, and her resilience. And it's given her the tools that she's going to be able to use for the rest of her life. Now, there's also Chase. Chase is a bit of a different kind of character. He runs a successful business, and he has done that for the last 10 years, 10, 20 years. But he said he put a lot of his emphasis on business and financial growth. And he said other areas of life took a back seat. And that was mainly his health and his relationships, right? So he was focusing all on the business and the finances. He ended up becoming a little bit socially anxious. And also, yeah, his health took a hit. And, he was carrying around Valium. He was on, different medications and stuff like that. Now he doesn't do that anymore. He's taken the Valium away. He doesn't carry it around as a safety net like he used to. And he's actually lost a bunch of weight as well because we worked on his beliefs. And he had a belief that said that if he was going to be healthy, that would have to sacrifice his business. So we changed the belief. Now he's dropped like a ridiculous amount of weight recently. And yeah, he's really optimizing his life for health and well-being. So not this stuff doesn't just work for anxiety, but it works on changing your whole belief systems and your whole identity, right? And so this is what I'm going to talk about this as we go on today. But the reason you're still stuck in a loop, right? You see, the reason you're still anxious isn't because you lack information, right? You probably have got access to a shit ton of information, right? Online, you got AI, like there's so much information. You guys have the information. Information is not scarce, right? It's because you lack proactive progression. It's not because you lack the information. Everyone knows what to do. You don't have a proactive plan in place to make progress. That's right. That's why people stay stuck, because they keep doing the same things over and over again. You keep learning new things, but not actually applying it to your life. You have no system to follow. There's no accountability. And so you just stay stuck, right? So at this point, you probably get it, right? You got to get good sleep. You got to dial in your habits. You got to have a solid routine. You got to regulate the nervous system. You got to learn to feel your feelings. You got to reprogram the mind. You got to change your thought processes. Like everyone knows this stuff, but the problem isn't knowing what to do. It's actually doing it and being kept accountable with support and guidance that are exactly suited to your needs. That's why people stay stuck. Everyone knows what to do, but not everyone actually does it. And that's where I can come in to help. So you're still stuck in a loop because your body and mind is conditioned to an old way of being. You've got familiar habits, you've got familiar belief systems, you've got familiar ways of dealing with your emotions, right? Your mind and body keep pulling you back into this familiar self because you've practiced it for so long. That's it. Like one thing I'll mention here is people often think that they're relapsing or they're having a regression or something like that because they got triggered again. Like, who has experienced this? Can we get Joe's name? Who's Joe? Sorry. Who did I say? Kylie and Chase. I don't know who Joe is. Who's Joe? But type a 222 if you've ever had this experience of like you've done some work, you've tried to make progress, and then something's happened which is like triggered you into feeling like you haven't made any progress and you're going back to square one again. I've had that experience a lot, right? Now, here's the thing. We all have got our familiar self and our conditioning. And so that experience that you've had, that we've all just agreed that Joe Dispenza. Yeah. Dr. Joe Dispenza. There you go, mate. Yeah, he's epic. You can look him up online. He's got heaps of stuff. He's got books and stuff as well. So we've all had this experience of like trying to do things, trying to make progress, but then falling back into old habits, right? That's actually completely normal and everyone has that experience. The problem is not that you've had this experience. The problem is that you allow it to snowball and you start to create a story around what it means that you've had that experience. And you start to create a whole narrative about how you can never move forward with your life. That is the problem. It's not the actual experience itself, it's the secondary story that comes after it. Because again, think about this. You've spent your whole life being a certain kind of person. And so you've already got all these programs, all these patterns, they're normal for you. They're actually a part of you, right? And so instead of trying to push them away and never experience them again, we actually want to try to welcome them in and go, okay, cool. Oh, this thing is happening again. What do I need to do differently? Or like, what is this reminding me? Or what is this teaching me about how to act differently, about how to think and feel differently? Because that's honestly the way that I see these triggers, not as a problem that needs to be solved, but as an opportunity and a reminder to do things differently. So we're not trying to like kill or eliminate our old self and our old habits and our old triggers and whatever. We're not trying to completely eradicate it because that's not possible. We're trying to actually integrate, right? We're trying to integrate the old self and mature it and evolve it and learn from it and grow from it. These little things that we have, our triggers or whatever it is, that's the thing for us to learn from. And actually, I see it now in my mind because I have this as well. I'm a human, just like all of you guys, right? When I have these little triggers that come into my life, I think, this is the. I've kind of like anchored it into my mind as a reminder. Oh, this is the reminder of what I'm supposed to be doing. This is the old thing coming back again, and it's a reminder for me. It's a reminder. It's a reminder. And I've set it up so that when I have those experiences, it reminds me, go and journal, go and do some meditation, go and use one of my frameworks, go and like reprogram the thing. So I'm not trying to push it away and say, don't ever come and fuck with me again, little annoying thing. I'm saying, here's that thing again. I'm gonna integrate it and evolve it and mature myself into the next part of this. But again, that's a completely different story to, this thing's here again. See, there's no point in even trying because it keeps coming back and I'm never going to be rid of this, right? I'm just a victim to this past experience and I'm never going to be able to change it, right? So what's the point? Fuck this, right? That's a different story instead of, no, I'm grateful that this thing is here again. This is an opportunity for me to grow. This is the signal for me. This is the signpost that's telling me, don't go that way, go this way. Thank you for actually showing me the way. Or thank you for showing me the wrong way. And so I can go again on the right way. Okay. Does that make sense? Drop a 333 if that makes sense. I swear I've learned the most powerful things in my life from what not to do, as opposed to what to do. A lot of the stuff, I'm not trying to blame my parents or anything like that, but like a lot of the things that I saw them do as a mistake has been such a blessing because I've learned what not to do. Right? Give an example of a trigger and how to change the story. Okay. Yeah. So like I'll give an example that's very, very common for a lot of people, and it's been one that I've personally had to work through. Not enough. I'm not doing enough. I'm not good enough. I don't have enough. Right? I'm fundamentally not enough. Right? Who's had that one before? I work. That's a personal one for me. Right? And I learned that through different things that happened when I was a child. One time I kicked my brother in the nuts. When I was I got four siblings and I got a younger brother. He's 2 years younger than me. And one time I hit him in the nuts when we were young, right? I sack whacked him. and then my dad came and just booted me. And I probably deserved it, but in that moment as a kid, I was left there to cry. And in that moment, like I know as an adult, oh, you shouldn't sack whack your brother. You shouldn't whack your brother in the nuts. But as a kid, I was a kid. I was like 7 or 8 years old, right? So, I probably knew it was the wrong thing to do, but I was a boy. Anyway, got whacked by my dad, and then got left there to cry alone. And so the whacking of the whack from dad wasn't the big problem. Again, I probably deserved it. I whacked my brother, he whacked me, whatever. That wasn't the big problem. The big problem was the fact that afterwards I was left there alone to cry. And I felt alone, and I felt like a piece of shit, and I felt like I'm just so much shame, not good enough. I didn't do good enough. People like, all this kind of stuff. So anyway, that's the story. But then, and that's just one example. But then, there's lots of times in life where I do something wrong. I feel that same shame. I feel that same real deep feeling of like not being a good enough person, right? And now I've learned that I've looked at the past to understand that, oh, that's where that's coming from. That was me as a kid. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm a fully grown adult. So now, because I have an understanding and an awareness of where these issues are coming from, I'm able to see them in a different light. I'm able to say, okay, this is not something that I need to carry with me, right? I can forgive myself for doing that, right? I was just a kid. It's not a big issue, right? And my dad maybe didn't understand that I maybe in that moment I needed some support, or my mum needed to come and support me, whatever. They were just like, he's done something wrong, he gets in trouble, right? And that's fair enough. It is what it is. So I forgive them, I forgive myself, and I accept that and I let that go. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm an adult. And this thing that's happening right now that's triggering me into feeling not good enough has nothing to do with what's actually happening. And it's got everything to do with some unresolved shit from the past, right? And so when I have an understanding of that and an awareness of that, I can then go, okay, this has got nothing to do with this. Now I'm choosing, I'm present, I'm here and I'm now, and I'm choosing a new story. I am enough, right? I've made mistakes, right? I've done things maybe that weren't the best, but that's okay. I'm only a human. I accept myself, I forgive myself, and I'm going to just show up and do my best, right? And so I'm changing the story, you see? So I'm going to go through a bit of an exercise with you guys on this today as well. So we'll actually talk about this, and we can apply it to one of your experiences or one of your triggers as well. So I've actually got a part of this exercise, the breakthrough activity, where we're actually going to do that together. But yeah, if you want to experience different results in your life, you need to do things differently. So the problem for a lot of people I work with is that they're not aware that this is how their mind and body even works in the first place, right? So you might go to the therapist and psychologist and, learn about this stuff, but, we need to find a resolution, right? We need to actually really understand ourselves. This is one of the biggest things. People don't understand themselves, right? This is why I think, yes, helping with anxiety, yes, helping with confidence and peace and all the rest of it. But behind all of that, for me, I'm helping people understand themselves, helping people understand how their mind and body works. Because when you understand how it all works, it becomes so much easier for you to stay in a rational and logical frame of mind, as opposed to an emotional frame of mind, right? There's nothing wrong with emotions, but thinking emotionally can be quite dangerous, right? We want to learn how to feel our emotions. We want to have good emotional intelligence, but that doesn't just mean feeling our emotions, right? It means thinking consciously about our emotions, being able to have a balance between the mind and the body, between the thoughts and the emotions, being able to think clearly about our emotions. That is real emotional intelligence, not letting your emotions hijack you and run your life. That is not good emotional intelligence, and that's the problem for a lot of people. And I'll talk about this today as well. You get this emotional trigger floods your brain with emotion and completely takes over. And now you're doing all this weird shit that you don't really want to be doing, right? Maybe that's why I got suspended off Instagram, because I'm always telling people that they're doing weird shit because of their emotions. But that's what happens, right? And you guys know what I'm talking about. You see it in your life. I'm sure you experience it yourself. You get triggered, you get flooded with emotion, and then you start being a version of yourself who you don't really want to be. If you were really logical and you were really conscious and switched on, you wouldn't be doing those things, right? That's just how it is. Fear of letting go. Yeah, fear of letting go. Yeah, well, yeah, it can be a fear of letting go because the past is so familiar. It's like that's your safety zone, that's your comfort zone, and so that's the safe place. So there is a fear of letting go. But if the safe place and the comfort zone is keeping you stuck in an existence that really doesn't feel good, and it's really not that inspiring or empowering, you've got to ask yourself a question: can I confront that fear, right? And can I move myself into a new experience? Can I allow myself to go into the unknown to try something different? Because that's what you got to do, right? Otherwise, you just stay stuck in the comfort zone. Cool. Yeah. So for a lot of us, we're not even aware of these, not aware, not conscious of these unconscious patterns. I talk to a lot of people, and one of the biggest kind of roadblocks I have to navigate when working with clients is the ego and people's pride, right? I have to be very careful around that because it can be a huge resistance for people. It's easier when I'm talking to a group like this because I can kind of blanket it. But when I'm talking one-on-one with people, it becomes very hard because you might feel personally attacked, right? And that's it. If the ego comes up, then protection comes on, and then it's very hard to coach people like that. So that's why I have to be very careful about that because yeah, if I activate someone's ego and the pride and the protection comes on, you're done. You can't really coach from there. So this is also why people need to have the ability to like drop their ego and have a certain level of humility or a certain level of like curiosity about themselves and maybe why they're doing things the way that they're doing things. Again, it comes back to understanding ourselves, right? So a lot of people, they're not even conscious of these unconscious patterns. And the thing is, you can't make someone change if they don't want to change. I'm sure you've always probably had this experience in your life where someone in your life is doing something that you think, oh, they shouldn't be doing that. And you want to help them change, but they're not listening, right? Because if they're not ready to do that, then it's not going to work. If they're not ready to face their unconscious stuff, where all their shit, if they're not consciously ready to do that, you can't help them, right? If they're not aware of the change that needs to happen, or if they're not willing to make those changes, you can't happen. And so most people just push through. They keep distracting themselves. They keep trying what they've always tried because that's all they know. And then nothing changes, and you're just left feeling distressed with no clarity. And then this can start to affect your health. It can start to affect your relationships. It can start to affect really everything, every part of your life. Yeah, it's a slippery slope if you don't. I'm sure you guys have seen people in your own life. I know I have, that have unfortunately let their life kind of crumble, right? This is kind of one of the big drivers for me is like, I've seen that firsthand and I really don't want that to happen in my life. So I do everything that I can to try and develop myself into a better person because I don't want to let my life go to shit. Right? I've got one life to live, and I'm very aware of the fact that I'll die someday, but that doesn't scare me anymore like it used to. Now it actually makes me really want to wake up and go after it and live, you know? So in this class, I'm going to show you exactly what you need to be doing to rewire your anxiety into calm, clarity, and control. Hopefully by this point, you've already got a bit of an understanding. Now, it's not supplements, medication, therapy, wearable technology, or anything external. I hear people trying like there's like these wearable technologies these days, like NeuroSim is like something that people put on their heads. Supplements, ashwagandha, like all these random things that people try. Go to the naturopath, go to the acupuncture person, try the therapy, try the SSRIs. For some people, they're just going straight to alcohol, and drugs, cocaine, whatever else. None of that is going to actually help you solve the problem of anxiety, right? It might give you some temporary relief. It might be a step in your journey. I'm not going to say that that's not going to be a part of the process. For a lot of people, it is. But what I've seen after working with hundreds of people is that what creates real change is doing the inner work, right? Anxiety is an internal problem. It's a problem in your mind and body, and it needs an internal solution. It needs a mind and body solution, right? So if you want help with that, right, I'm going to give you guys an invitation to join the upcoming May Mind Launch Mentorship. So every month I take on 5 new one-on-one coaching clients. This is what I'm doing right now. I'm taking on 5 new one-on-one coaching clients every month. because that's my capacity, right? This is something that I do. I run this business by myself, basically. And so, when I come to work with people over the years, I've done different things, right? I've done group programs, I've done courses, I've done memberships. Right now, I've got two young kids, and the way that I'm running the business, I run it by design as well. I try to have a life by design. And so right now, what I'm doing is 5 one-on-one clients every month, and that is it. There's no other way to work with me. I'm doing these free workshops. I do a lot of free content online, but if you want my direct help, it's one-on-one coaching for 3 months on this 90-day plan, and that's what I'm offering right now. So I've just put a link to the document with all the details. If you want to read what that's about, there's a link in the chat box that covers everything. You can see everything. Now, this month, I've already signed on 3 clients. So I've got 2 spots left for this month. There's no pressure to join, but I'm just sharing it with you in case you are interested. All the details are there. If you do want more help, then that is going to be the best way that I can help you. Again, no pressure here, just showing you kind of like what is available. And there are a couple of spots available this month in May. So that's that. You can have a look through those details in your own time at your own leisure, but I'm going to keep cracking on with this workshop. So the neuroscience of anxiety, right? Your mind directly impacts your body. There's like so much stuff online, and so I know it's confusing. People always tell me how confusing it is, because there's so much information online. Who's experienced that as well? Like type of 444 in the chat box if you've experienced this like overwhelming confusion from all the information online. Yep. Take this jumper off. I'm heating up. Flano. Cool. Yeah. And there's so many books, there's so many different ideas, things that you can do. There is a book called The Body Keeps the Score. Who's heard of that one? The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. That came out a few years ago, and it was talking about how trauma is kept in the body and stored in the body. And so there was this big movement of like traumas in the body, somatic healing, all this kind of stuff, right? Now, I think that the body is an important aspect, but I've always had this knowing, I think through my meditation, that it's not just the body, it's the body and the mind, right? You've got to address the body and the mind together. Now, recently, there was actually a paper that's come out and it's doing the rounds online. Who's seen this paper? It's called The Body Does Not Keep the Score. And I know how confusing is it when you've got all these scientists and neuroscientists coming out one year with one thing and then coming out with another thing the next year. Who's seen that new paper, The Body Does Not Seem to Keep the Score? Has anyone seen that one online? It's actually by some really well-renowned neuroscientists. So it's a legitimate paper. And there's a lot of sensationalism around it online. It basically says that you have to take into account neuroplasticity. And when it comes to trauma is not actually like stored in your muscles, right? It's kind of in your brain and in your body, right? So it's talking about how we need to develop this meta stability, which is the ability to control thoughts and emotions, or at least to direct. Control is like one of those weird words that people get funny about, but let's just say direct. You have to be able to direct your thoughts and emotions, because the trauma that's in your body, if you have trauma, which we all do, but again, not necessarily trauma, let's just call it conditioning, learned ways of being, like a learned process of thinking, feeling, and acting, right? You've got that just as part of the way that you've learned to be a human, and everyone has that, right? Now, when you're trying to change, some people have this more severe kind of trauma, some people not so much, but everyone has their conditioning, the way that they are operating, right? And when you're trying to change that, or you're trying to heal your trauma, and even I've worked with lots of people, right, who have had severe anxiety. I've worked with a wide range of quite severe cases. It's always the same, right? If you are too hyper-focused on the feelings in your body, it becomes very difficult for you to make any changes, because you're continually hyper-focused on the feelings in your body, right? And you have to be able to have this neuroplastic kind of brain that's able to adjust your thoughts and emotions, right? It's so important, because you need to change the meaning and the story that you're attaching to the experience that you're having. right? And if you go deep into this, you're gonna see a lot of kind of science that supports what I'm saying right now. But the thing is, right, if you have a belief system that is continually telling you that you are not safe and that there is something wrong with you, it doesn't matter how much somatic body healing you do, because you could do all the somatic nervous system healing that you want, but if your brain continues to go back to a thought or a belief that says there's something wrong, I'm not safe, you're going to continue to send these signals to the body, which is going to keep you stuck in a loop. Right? Now, the opposite is also true. It's not just about the mind, because let's say that you really work on your mind. You're doing CBT, you're trying to like change cognitive behavior and all this kind of stuff, and you're really working on changing your thoughts, right? But in your body, it's constantly dysregulated. It's under intense stress that's not being managed properly in the body. You're burning out, right? You're drinking too much caffeine, like me. And you're not taking care of your body properly. But you're trying to think clearly. You're trying to think about how you're so healthy and how you're so, everything's healing. But your body's not giving the signal back to the mind that that's happening. It's not going to work, right? Because your body is going to continue to send the signal back to your mind that says, no, this, like, you're trying to think clearly, but your body is not experiencing, health or balance, or it's actually called homeostasis, right? A nice regulated state. Your body's not in the parasympathetic state. It's not resting. It's not relaxed. Your body is not relaxed. Your body is fight or flight, freaking out, right? And you're trying to tell your mind everything's all good, but your body's freaking out. So then, it's like there's this incoherence or this disconnect. Okay. Same thing. You're trying to heal your body, but your mind keeps saying that there's something wrong. It's just this kind of back and forth, this loop, right? So what we've actually got to do is we've got to do the mind and the body, right? At the same time. And that's not actually an overwhelming thing. It's actually very simple. It's actually very, very clear, right? It's quite a simple approach, really, right? I'm actually amazed that we're so uneducated about this. Because for me it makes total sense. Like, just look at me in the camera. I'm a one person. It's not like I'm cut at the neck, not like I'm nearly headless Nick, where my head is disconnected from my body. I'm a fucking person, right? And when you look at people, you see that they're just one unified system of the head and the body, the brain and the body. So we try to treat mental health as if our head is like this separate thing. That's such a crazy idea, right? Why would you do that? It's like, but this is the nature of the mind, because the mind is kind of invisible, right? We can't really see it. And sometimes we actually think that our mind is like a separate thing, right? But it's really not. Okay. There is a separate part of yourself, which it's not really separate, but there's the highest part of yourself, which is your spirit, your awareness, or your consciousness. I believe that is a higher part, right? But the mind and the body are essentially they're closer, they're more attached, right? They're closer, or it's actually in the Eastern philosophies, they call it the gross. The body is gross because it's very dense, the body, right? Now the mind in the Eastern philosophies, they call it subtle because it's not as gross, but it's subtle, right? And then they have the spirit, they call it causal, the cause of everything, right? And so I know that this is starting to veer a little bit away from the science, but after working with hundreds of people and again, going deep into meditation and helping people to connect with their awareness, it's a higher part where you can see, when you're in this higher part of awareness, you can see the body and mind are one system, right? You're aware of your mind and body as one system, as opposed to if you're in your mind can think that it is separate to the body, right? This is why like mental health gets treated separately, because people are thinking that their mind is separate, right? But when you actually go into a higher level, you see the mind and body are one. Right? So anyway, I know that's a little bit off the deep end there, but this is what I really think, and this is what I really believe. But let's go back to the neuroscience. Your mind directly impacts your body. Your thoughts send electrochemical signals to the body through the nervous system. If you didn't know, I should have put a little diagram here. But the nervous system is actually the brain and the spine, essentially, right? That's kind of the highway of the nervous system. It's actually the brain and the spine. And the central nervous system is literally the brain and the spine, and the whole nervous system comes out from this highway of brain and spine. So it's literally one system. Okay. So when you have a thought in your brain, it sends a signal to the body through the nervous system. These signals are called neurotransmitters. There's also these other things called neuropeptides. And so they affect your hormones, right? So for example, an anxious thought or a fearful thought or a stressful thought is going to create more cortisol and adrenaline in the body. The mind is going to say, let's just say, I'm broken. I'm never going to be healed. There's something wrong with me, right? Send a signal to the body. It's creating stress, creating cortisol. Okay, literally your thoughts create a different hormonal experience, which then sends your nervous system into this fight or flight. Whereas if you focus on thinking positive thoughts, happy thoughts, life-giving thoughts, loving thoughts, create oxytocin and serotonin in the body, and it creates a whole different experience. You're able to rest, right? Like we did before, touching hand on heart and belly, and then kind of breathing and just kind of clearing the mind, right? Everyone felt more relaxed after that. Right. So one thought can send your body into a fight or flight mode, while the other thought allows your body to feel safe and relaxed. Now, I could do an experiment right now where I just say some really scary stuff, and you would probably start to feel anxious, but I'm not going to do that because that's not cool. And that's not what we're aiming for here. We're aiming for this peace, and we're aiming for calm and relaxation. And so we want to focus on that. So again, there's a lot of debate about whether you need to do somatic body work when healing anxiety or trauma versus doing cognitive brain work. Do you focus on changing your thoughts or feeling your feelings? The answer is both. You've got to do both, right? You've got to create balance in the mind and the body, right? So the state of your mind and body, your brain and your nervous system, is what determines the quality of your life. If your body is constantly dysregulated and always on high alert, snapping over insignificant little things or feeling stressed and anxious 24/7, it's very hard to feel calm, relaxed, and happy. And if your mind is constantly looping negative thoughts, worst case scenarios, and overthinking that leaves you in a feeling of fear, it's very hard to get your body into a healthy and functional state. So we have to take this full mind-body approach. Now, this is where the mind launch method comes in. Regulate the nervous system. This is really around getting into your body, learning to feel calm, learning to create a sense of relaxation in your system, right? And that actually does come first. I do think that comes first. We need to learn how to create that, right? We need to learn how to calm the body down. And then once we are feeling calm, this is what I've seen after working with lots and lots of different people. We get the body feeling calm first. We get some routines in place. We get some consistency. We build the foundation first, which is just regulate. Then we move into reprogram. Now, when we're calm in the body, we can be a bit clearer in the mind. This is when we can actually start to address our thoughts and our beliefs properly. Right? This is when we can actually start to change things without being so reactive, because we've got a bit more of a stable baseline. And then we can actually think a little bit more consciously and logically about the thoughts that we're having. And then you do that, you work on the mind body. Ultimately, we want to move towards this reset of your identity. Get back to living as that happy version of yourself, right? That carefree version of yourself who's actually able to enjoy life. And really like building a new identity, having a reset in your identity, right? One thing that I stopped doing a while ago is I stopped identifying with anxiety, right? I think this was one of the biggest things I was so lucky, honestly, to have come into contact with meditation at such a young age, because my mind was still so open. Okay. And so with the meditation in the beginning, I was able to really just kind of see things from a whole different perspective, a whole different level of awareness. And I was like, who am I? Like, who am I really? And I was able to detach from all of these ideas that I had about myself and who I was being, which was hard for a while because I had my social circles, I had my friends, I had the things that we used to do, and that was part of my identity. That was part of my personification. Oh, I'm someone who does this with these people, right? I'm someone who drinks every weekend. I'm someone who does all these different things. And so I had to let go of that because it wasn't really what I realized about myself is that I wasn't really who I was. That's not really who I wanted to be, right? But I was doing all of those things just because it gave me a sense of belonging. I was in my social group. It was, I think Glenn said before, fear of the unknown or fear of letting go. I had to deal with that for a long time in my 20s to go away from unhealthy environments. I had a fear of letting go because what would I do otherwise? That was all I knew. So how do I move away from that? So I had to recreate my identity. I had to have a reset in my identity. And actually, it wasn't really like I had to create a new one. It was more that I had to just get into alignment with who I really am and who I really want to be. And start speaking my mind, start being more truthful, start being more honest with myself. I learned to say no, which was a huge thing. I know a lot of people struggle with like not being able to say no. I had to say no. I had to become okay with hurting people's feelings. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I'm not going to suppress myself to keep others happy. I don't do that anymore, right? Because their emotions are not my responsibility. I'm not trying to intentionally hurt anyone or kind of shit on anyone, right? But I'm also not suppressing my own self to keep others happy. Okay. I'm still doing my best to be kind and compassionate, but I'm also drawing a harder line on what I accept and what I'm just not okay with. And I give myself permission to do that. Right. And this is I didn't used to do this. My old self didn't do that. And still there's still time we talk about the triggers and things that happen that are like triggering us. Still, it happens where I have to consciously work on changing that old self, right? Still now, right? I'm still working on it. But this is the thing. I'm having this reset in my identity. I'm creating the kind of life that I want, and I'm not some people pleaser person who tries to keep everyone else happy, right? I'm confident enough to be like, no, this is what I'm okay with, and this is what I'm going to accept, and while still taking responsibility for myself, right? Again, taking responsibility for my shit. I'm not perfect all the time, but I'm doing my best to be the person who I want to be. So I have a clear image of who I want to be, and I'm working towards that. And I have a clear understanding of who I don't want to be, and I'm trying to move away from that, right? Doing my best. And so I'm sure you guys can resonate with that. So that's kind of how the mind launch method works, right? It's just 3-step system: regulate, reprogram, reset. Now we're going to go into it in a bit more depth. But let's just take a deep breath and have a bit of a break. Maybe we'll have a 5-minute break. If you need to go to the toilet, or if you need to have some water, or if you need to, whatever else you might need to do. Let's have a few minutes break right now. You can get up, maybe just, have a bit of a shake out if you want, move your legs, take a few deep breaths, because we're going to get into the mind launch method. I'm going to break it all down for you guys. And we're going to go over that. We've still got a fair bit of stuff to cover. I think we're doing pretty well for time, but we've got a good amount of stuff still to cover. Now we're about to also dive into some like information heavy kind of stuff. Shouldn't be too information heavy, but I'm going to actually walk you through some really practical things about the mind launch method, about the regulate, about the reprogram, about the reset. So we're going to dive into that now. And that's going to move us towards the end of the session. So yeah, take a couple of minutes now. We'll come back at 9:25. So let's just go a couple of minutes. I think it's 9:23 according to my watch. We'll come back at 9:25. So a couple of minutes, toilet break, and then we'll come back and we'll keep things rolling. But if you need to, yeah, go and take a break. I'll stay here. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them while we're having a little break here. Otherwise, go and do what you need. Glad to hear that you think it's spot on, Aaron. That's good. Yeah, it's crazy. There's so much information online about what to do. I tell people when they come and work with me to just like follow one system, like just do this one thing, right? Don't overcomplicate it. if you see, I've showed you guys the results that we get. So it's like, if you just stick to the one thing that you should be doing, just do that one thing. Don't overcomplicate it. Simplify. Do less, not more. Any questions or anything while we're taking a short little intermission? Or if you guys are happy to just keep cracking on, just let me know in the chat box, 555, if you're ready for us to just keep going. I think it's nice to just have a little pause though. If you're ready to keep going, type 555 and we'll just keep going. Okay. Well, it's 9:25 now, so let's just keep going, right? Let's take a deep breath. Big breath in. And breath out. All right, big breath in the mouth, into the belly. Before we keep going, let me just tell you about the breath, right? The anatomy of the breath. One breath is actually two breaths, right? You've got the inhale and the exhale. There's two parts of the breath. The inhale is very uplifting, right? You can see my chest and my lungs are expanding, uplifting. And then the exhale, it's letting go. It's a relief, right? Now, I think that's really important because people just try to do breath work and they just try, I needed breath work to just like fix me, right? You want to develop a more connected relationship to your breath. Inhale, open up, exhale, let go. And ideally, we're breathing through our nose. But for something like today where I'm trying to get you guys a bit more energized, you can breathe through the mouth. But yeah, breathe through the nose. Also, don't breathe into the chest. Breathe into the belly. Make it a practice to breathe down deeply into your belly. Right? Every day, try to consciously breathe into your belly. I've just started working in this co-working space recently. And there's a guy who sits behind me, and he runs a building design business. Anyway, he's recently come on as a client. But he he sits there and I just hear him all day, like 5 times a day. Like he's just like taking these real short breaths, like right? He just do that. He does that all the time, like 5 or 6 times a day. And one of the first things I said to him, I was like, brother, you need to learn how to breathe deeper, like get down into your body a little bit more relaxed. Because this kind of real chest heavy sigh, it's a clear sign of a stressed out system for me. I'm just like, this guy has got some issues, right? So yeah, practice breathing down into your belly. All right, are we having a good time so far? Are you guys getting a lot out of this? Give me something in the chat box. Yep, give me what's the one thing that you've taken away from this so far that has been the most helpful? What's like one takeaway that you've found the most helpful so far? Let me know in the chat box before we kick off. The most helpful thing so far. Come on, someone give me something. What's the most helpful thing that we've found so far? Need to connect mind and body together. Yeah, very important. Very, very important. Now, a lot of people think that meditation is also just about the mind. It's not. Yeah, this is why so many people, I get so, it's like one of my, what do they say? Really grinds my gears. Homer Simpson. It really grinds my gears. When people say they've tried meditation, it doesn't work. It does work. People just don't know how to do meditation properly. And one of the big problems is a lot of people think that meditation is just supposed to be about clearing the mind, but that's not actually true. That's not even true either. Yes, one of the qualities or one of the purposes of meditation is to clear the mind and to learn how to like let go of your thoughts and to be a bit less attached to your thought process. But another thing that happens in meditation is you actually get deeply connected to your body, right? In my years of meditation, I always talk about these kind of four sensory pillars of my meditation. My breath, again, breath comes in through the nose or through the mouth, and it goes into the lungs, which are in the body, right? So you're getting connected to your body through the breath. Also, another one is listening. So you can listen. You can become present by listening in the here and now. You hear things, you hear sounds, and when you can hear them without being attached to them, that's when you're able to find presence because you're just hearing the sound without making a story about it. Third is feeling. So in your meditation, you probably feel different things. You'll go through the day, maybe you feel a bit of pain in your back, maybe you might feel a bit of anger or frustration coming up. Maybe you feel even a bit anxious just by closing your eyes. That's not a problem. That's a part of the process. Meditation helps you to learn to feel, right? So again, it's not just about clearing the mind, it's about becoming deeply connected to your body as well, right? So people don't, this is stuff that I teach people that people don't understand. Cool. All right. Very good. Okay, sweet. Mind impacts body, everything. Connect mind and body together. Yep, definitely. All right, cool. Let's crack on then and talk about the mind launch method. So the mind launch method is a three-step system. Regulate the nervous system, reprogram the subconscious mind, reset your identity. And I'm going to walk you through the complete system now. Now, also, you guys should have the Mind OS ebook that should have got sent out to you with the email. If you didn't get that one, get it or let me know and I'll give it to you. I'll put the link in the chat box again. Again, this is something that I take my one-on-one coaching clients through. So I'm just giving it to you. The idea is that, you can have the information. I'm not going to try and gatekeep the information. The thing that people want, usually when they come to work with me, is not just information, but it's the implementation. They want accountability, they want guidance, they want support, and that's where I can come in and help, right? If you want the information, it's there. If you want extra support and personalized guidance from me to fast track this process and then make sure you actually stick to it instead of just letting this ebook become something that you look at once and never look at again, then you can hire me and I can coach you, right? But that's the ebook. It's really solid. It's quite detailed, walks through the whole process, right? So I'm going to do a briefer overview of it today. All right, where are we? Regulate. So this is the first part of the process. Regulate the nervous system. So there's a field of scientific study called psychoneuroimmunology. Now, this is a field of study that talks about how thoughts and emotions influence the nervous system, the endocrine system, and the immune system. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. I was listening to a podcast the other day where this lady was talking about how she basically got cancer and nearly died, and she made a recovery. And in her recovery, she realized one of the things that was causing her to get so sick was her fear. She was afraid, and she was suppressing a lot of her emotions. And now I know that people get funny about this, but this is just one story. And I'm sure you've heard, I hear a lot of stories about this, right? Where people's emotions impact how their health. Right? And it's really not that hard to believe when you just think about stress as like the biggest contributor to the leading causes of mortality. Right? Stress and kind of anxiety and fear lead to a lot of like high blood pressure, right? Heart conditions, all sorts of stuff. Stress and fear and all these kinds of really dense, heavy emotions in the body do not create a system that is able to flow freely. Like it's not a healthy system. The thing with stress is it literally contracts you. It's a contraction. If you're under stress, you are contracted, right? So let's say your body wants to become this beautiful, clean, flowing kind of system for health. If your body is under a lot of stress and contraction, it makes it harder for energy, blood, oxygen to flow through your system, right? Now, that's just a more practical example. But there's this field of study called psychoneuroimmunology. It actually studies how thoughts and emotions influence the nervous system, the endocrine system, and immune system. They have found that, again, your thoughts, they create these neurotransmitters, these neuropeptides, and these hormones that affect your body's physiological state. So your central system, nervous system, is comprised of your brain, your spine. So your brain literally sends these signals from the brain to the body, like I was talking about before, right? So you think stressful, anxious, fearful thoughts, and it sends signals to the body. And then that creates a different hormonal response, more adrenaline in the system, more cortisol in the system, a more activated nervous system, fight or flight, more contraction, negative health outcomes, right? Burnout, all sorts of anxiety attacks, all sorts of stuff. So you have these thoughts, right? The cognitive process, and basically how your thoughts work is that your senses, so your ability to see, feel, touch, hear, and smell, perceive the experience you have externally, and then your brain interprets those experiences internally. And so also your environment plays a big part in this, like what you learned about your environment from being a child, right? Like what you learned from your parents, from your school, from your environment. It informs the way that you think about the world, right? What you experienced, you created thoughts around that because you gave it meaning when you were, developing, when your brain was developing. You gave your experiences meaning based off your environment, right? But this is essentially how it works. You see something, and then you then you have a mental cognitive process around what you see or what you hear or what you feel or touch or smell, right? So if you saw your parents fighting a lot or whatever, or like, you were left alone, like my story I was telling you before, then you can create a story about that, right? Just create a thought process or a belief system. This is dangerous. This is exciting. I'm not good enough. I'm, yeah, whatever it is, broken. So you have these thoughts, and they're basically your interpretations of your experiences. Now, your thoughts release neurotransmitters. So your internal thoughts trigger the release of certain chemicals like cortisol, adrenaline, dopamine, or serotonin. Positive, good thoughts equals serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, happy, calm. Negative, bad thoughts, cortisol, adrenaline, stress, and anxiety. Right? Fear. And your neurotransmitters activate your nervous system. So the chemicals running through your nervous system impact your physiological experience. So you have these positive, good thoughts that lead to like serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, and going to allow you to be in a rest and digest state. Negative, bad thoughts, fearful thoughts, anxious thoughts, stressful thoughts, sending signals to the body, cortisol and adrenaline, sympathetic, fight or flight, right? So how to regulate your nervous system. Now, you need to learn how to stay present and actually let go of your thoughts in the first place. So this is like you've got to drop your ego, and you've got to let go of your thoughts, and you've got to create a blank slate in your mind. Right? This is what I tell people with meditation a lot. I say you got to create a blank slate. You got to create a clear mind, right? You got to let go of the past, clear the mind. And the way that you do that is by becoming present. Let go of the thoughts, right? Learn to not be attached to them, right? Because you're going to have them. It's not about stopping them completely. It's just about not attaching to them and just not buying into them, right? And then once you've got that blank slate, it's like you're an artist. Now, instead of all the shit that's drawn on your canvas already, you clean it, right? By being present. When you're present in the here and now, naturally that just happens. You guys experienced that an hour ago when we did that short little meditation. It was a clarity that came over you. Then you consciously redirect your thoughts. So you reframe, right? Moving towards what you would prefer, like we also did today. What would I prefer? Peace, freedom, right? And we're an hour into this, or we're an hour and a half into this, maybe, and we're going through, and it's like, oh, now I'm consuming information again. Maybe my system's starting to go into a bit more of that stress state again, right? Maybe. I know I kind of feel it a little bit. I don't feel as calm as I did before. But because you're in this beta brainwave, you're like really actively listening here. But you do need to learn to consciously redirect your thoughts, become present, redirect your thoughts, and then process your emotions properly, right? So that's kind of the process we do it. We create the blank slate, we learn to reframe, and that's how we regulate. Okay. And again, this is a practice. It's something that we practice on a day-to-day basis. It's not like a magic silver bullet that I'm just telling you this is how you do it. It's a practice that needs to be implemented into your day-to-day life, right? As like habits and routines, right? Now, for some people, that's too hard. Right? I don't want to do that. All right, we'll continue with how you're living right now. Right? Let's see how that goes. Right? When you are present in the moment and not in your head, the natural state is calm and peace, as you experienced. So you have to build your capacity to stay present. When you have this blank slate of present awareness, you can consciously choose the thoughts you want to think. You start thinking new thoughts, you start feeling new feelings. You do that on a daily basis, you start to regulate your nervous system, right? When you're able to process your emotions reasonably instead of reactively, you'll be able to stay calm and at peace, right? So you have to build your capacity to process emotions without reacting to them. Now, I'm going to talk about the amygdala hijack, and why these triggers seem so intense in a little bit. That's actually part two. First part is, creating this blank slate, this calm baseline, right? And learning to consciously redirect those thought processes, learning to process the emotions. So in the regulate phase, we build new habits and routines to calm the body and clear the mind. This is where we build the foundations of a healthy system. You learn to reduce your stress and anxiety quickly, and you start to use your intention to create the life that you want. Your conscious intention allows you to hack the default mode network of your brain, and this is where we start to move into reprogramming. So reprogram, right? In phase one, we talked about the nervous system and how your brain impacts your body. In phase two, we're going to start to address changing your brain and how to reprogram the mind. Now, there's two key parts of the brain, of the Brian. So you can tell that I wrote this myself and not AI, because I just wrote Brian there. I think I was actually doing this late last night as well. There's two key parts of the Brian that I want to highlight here: the default mode network and the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. Let me just go back a second. I think I skimmed over this, and I've spoken about it a couple of times today. So in the regulate phase, we're building new habits and routines to calm the body and clear the mind. We're going to build the foundation of a healthy system. We're going to learn to reduce stress and anxiety, and we're going to start to use your intention to create the life you want. Right? So I talked about intention already a couple of times today. Your conscious intention allows you to hack the default mode network of your brain. Right? So I'm going to talk about this now. I'm going to talk about the default mode network, right? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's your default mode. When you're not consciously, so it's a part of, it's a network in your brain. It's called the default mode network. And when you're not consciously directing your own mind, right, you fall back into the default settings that have been pre-programmed into your subconscious. Like you just live in the default, the automatic. So a clear example of this is like, you wake up every day. And what do you do every day when you wake up? Probably you just do the same shit that you did yesterday. And if you do that every day, you just get the same shit happening every single day. Because you just wake up and you're automatically into default. Even though you think that you're self-aware, you do not take the time out of your day to consciously direct your thoughts and your mind. And you don't maybe you do, but for a lot of people, they don't intentionally decide that this is how I want to be today. This is how I want to think today. This is how I want to feel today. No, for a lot of people, you wake up and you just start reacting to life. And you're straight into the default mode. You're straight into the subconscious like habits. And it's just the same shit every day, right? So earlier, I spoke about how you're just living a life that's totally based on your familiar habits and beliefs. Until you start to really question yourself and ask if the way that you're thinking and acting is in alignment with the kind of life you want to create, you just keep repeating the past, right? Nothing changes, nothing changes. I'm sure you've heard that one before, right? But it's true. If you just keep waking up and going into the same experience every day, and you do the same things, you play out the same automatic habits, you go into the same familiar feelings, you're just going to get more of the same. You have to use like your conscious intention. I'm going to wake up and intentionally choose how I'm going to have my day today. Right? People say win the morning, win the day. But it's just so true. When you wake up and decide, this is how I'm going to live my life today. Now you're a creator of life. You're not a victim of life anymore because you're waking up and you're choosing. Every day is like a new life. You get to wake up every day. How fucking awesome is that? So grateful I got to wake up today. Right? Act like it. Don't just repeat the same shit that you do every other day. If it's not what you want, if it's not the life that you want to create, choose to live a different life. Use your intention to consciously create a new life. Surviving with no intention of life or without purpose. Exactly. That's what happens for so many people. And I'm not trying to bag anyone or make anyone feel bad, but it's like I'm just trying to wake us up, right? If we just keep doing that every day, we just live in this survival. Every day we wake up and we're just trying to survive. We're just going through the same things with no intention, no purpose. Like, not a very good way to live. And sometimes people will like, I don't know what my purpose is. If you don't know what your purpose is, make yourself the purpose. This is a huge thing. I used to struggle with purpose a lot. I was like, what's my purpose? I have no idea what my purpose is. Right? It used to bother me actually for a long time. I'm so grateful that I'm doing what I'm doing now. But for a long time, I didn't, like I told you before at the start of this, I really never thought that I would be doing this for a career. For 10 years, whilst I was practicing meditation, I never thought that I would do it as a career. And I was always searching for purpose. And I was always like, why don't I know what I want to do with my life? Right? What actually helped me was helping others. I started to actually stop asking myself, and this is a bit of a side note, but I started to stop asking myself what I wanted to do. And I started asking myself, how can I help others? So I tried to take the focus off myself and put it onto others. And that was actually massively transformational for me. Not just what what's my purpose? Me. I actually started thinking, how can I help others? And then I started to do volunteering and I started to do, like, I did environmental work for a little bit before I was into this. And I just slowly started making connections and moving down this path that ended up leading me to where I am today. But it was because I decided that I was going to try to do something, try to help someone or help someone else, right? I had already spent a long time trying to help myself. Right? I'd already spent like 10 years with meditation and self-development. So I was already on that path. But it changed again for me when I started to focus on others. But if you're not clear of like what your purpose in is life and you feel like you don't have something that you can help others with, that's also fine. Work on yourself first. Get yourself really healthy. Get yourself into a really good state of mind. Get yourself into this really good energy where you're actually feeling like you've got something to give. And go from there, right? If you don't know what your purpose is, make yourself the purpose to start with. And I guarantee if you take care of yourself and you get yourself into this best self version of you, then you start to fill your cup up. You start to actually feel like you're overflowing with energy. Right now, if you're just surviving, you've got no energy for anything else. So you need to get yourself out of survival first, right? Focus on yourself, make yourself the purpose. And then, keep doing that until you can end up, really finding a strong sense of purpose in life. It starts with every day. You got to just wake up and decide that today I'm going to make something of my life. I'm going to back myself. I'm going to do something, as opposed to just living as like what Aaron said, surviving with no intention or life with purpose, right? So the good news with the default mode network is it's a relatively easy fix for someone who is willing to make the necessary changes, right? This is so important though, you've got to be willing to do it. You can use your intention, your willpower, and your conscious effort to hack the default mode network and decide what thoughts you want to think and what actions you want to take. When you start living intentionally and with purpose, you can rewire the default mode network and create a new normal for yourself. Now, I want to just add something here. I've given you guys an offer for my coaching today. Now, there is absolutely no pressure for you to do that. And you can take everything that I'm telling about this stuff today and you can apply it to your own life. But I do coaching because some people want to have accountability. They want guidance, they want support. And it's my way of helping people and teaching what I know, right? And it works for me. But what I'm saying here is I just want to let you know that you can take what I'm sharing with you today and you can apply it to your own life. And I've given you the ebook. I'm going to give you another ebook. There's a free training on my website, which I'm going to show you. Like, you don't actually need to pay me for coaching or to hire me or anything like that. This 3 hour workshop, I'm trying to give you as much as I can so that you can actually go and apply this to your own life. If you do want more help, of course, you can reach out, right? And we can have a chat. But this stuff that I'm teaching you, I'm giving you pretty much everything that you need. It's just about application, right? It's like you've got to apply yourself to do the things, you know? And really that's it's a huge thing, like applying yourself. I was fortunate. My dad, even though he kind of struggled with a lot of things and he taught me a lot of what not to do, he's always been very disciplined and he taught us discipline from a young age. So I've never really had trouble with discipline and I feel very blessed about that. But in saying that, I've got my own, coaches and mentors that I've learned from over the years because there's certain things that I just don't know how to do or I didn't know how to do and I wanted to learn. I think that's the purpose of like teaching and coaching and sharing, is to learn things. Um, but yeah, the point I'm getting at here is like you've got to be able to apply yourself, right? And if that's not a part of your identity right now, and it's not a part of your belief systems, it's not a part of your experience, then you have to learn how to do that, right? And a big part of it, I showed you earlier, there was a testimonial from a guy called Chase, who was the guy that was running the business and not really working on his health. He didn't ever think that he was a disciplined person or someone who was able to focus on health. We changed his belief systems and his identity to now every time I talk to him, I'm still working with him. I've been working with him for 2 years. He's changed his whole identity. And we're going to actually talk about that in the reset phase of today's call. And I'm going to give you another resource to help with that. Because you can change your identity. You don't have, again, like I said a million times today, you don't have to be a victim of the past. You can create your future. You can change, right? Now, sometimes a lot of people also think that like change is like, oh, why should I need to change? Like, why can't I just be happy with what I've got now? Change doesn't mean that something needs to be wrong, right? Or like, it's not meant to be all figured out right now. How boring would life be if that was the case? Change is about growth. And like I'm really into nature, right? You look at nature, we got 4 seasons, right? Or some cultures say we have got more seasons than that, but we've got 4 primary seasons, right? We've got summer, we've got autumn, we've got winter, and we've got spring. I don't know why that took me so long. But there's this cyclical nature, right, of the seasons. And there's also, when you look at a tree, the tree doesn't just stop growing. It grows and grows and grows and grows, right? And flowers, they bloom and then they kind of go in and then they bloom again and they go in and they bloom again. This is the nature of growth and change. It's constant evolution. Now, humans are nature. We are organic beings as well, right? So why do we have this weird ego thing where we say we just should be the way that we are and that's it? I see growth and change as evolution, right? It's maturity. I always think about like elders. I've had this interesting fascination with like elders because I think that in our modern sort of society we don't really have any elders, but like in traditional cultures there's elders. And an elder is someone who's like got wisdom, right? I look around at our society and I see elders and I'm like, there's not that many elders because most of our adults stopped growing when they were like 20. They didn't mature anymore. They didn't change anymore. And they're just stuck as like these really immature children. A lot of adults, you see that, right? I'm sure you guys resonate and know what I'm saying. And I think that when we grow and when we allow ourselves to change and to develop, we can have this wisdom and we develop ourselves into people who are worthy of actually being called elders. Right? I know it's a strange thing for a young man like me to talk about, but I think about that a lot. Right? Anyway, that's a total side note and rant. But let's talk about the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, right? Because we talked about the default mode network and how you don't need to be just living in your default mode for the rest of your life. You can kind of change things, right? When you start living intentionally and with purpose, you rewire the default mode network, create a new normal for yourself. That's like, how do we do that? Well, we've got the thing that's going to stop us from doing that is, again, it's these kind of things that keep pulling us back. So let's talk about the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. Ever notice how you get emotionally heightened over insignificant little things? It's like you're at the whim of external circumstances, or you make some progress, but then one thing happens and you feel like you're going back to square one again because you get triggered into a similar response or a similar reaction to what you've experienced before. Right? You guys all said that you have experienced that. There's a little part of your brain called the amygdala, which is responsible for emotional processing and threat detection. There's also another part of your brain which is called the hypothalamus or something like that, which is like memory. So when your amygdala fires off because you're perceiving some threat or you're feeling some emotion, it can flood your brain. And it's actually, there's a term for it by Daniel Goleman, who's the guy who came up with the concept of emotional intelligence. Daniel Goleman, he created the concept called emotional intelligence. He's got books on it. He talks about this concept called the amygdala hijack. When you get triggered or you have an emotional response, it floods the brain or it can hijack the brain. And now you're doing all crazy stuff, right? You're overthinking. You can't get out of your head. Your brain gets foggy. You're unclear. And none of it's logical or rational. It's all emotional. Right? Who knows what I'm talking about? Have you guys experienced this? Type what number are we up to? 666 in the chat box. If you have experienced this before, where you get emotional and your brain just goes to shit, basically. Can't think clearly, end up getting real reactive. Yeah. That's the amygdala, right? The amygdala is hijacking you. So those times when you're getting triggered, it's actually a natural safety mechanism because your brain is perceiving a threat or a danger. And so emotionally you react with anger or anxiety. It's the fight or flight, right? That's actually normal. It becomes a problem when you're getting hijacked by your amygdala and there's nothing really dangerous happening, right? That's when it becomes a problem. Emotional reactivity. We all deal with it, but you can train yourself to manage it better, right? The way to reduce the intensity of these amygdala hijacks is by strengthening the activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is the logical and rational part of the brain. Okay. So I'm going to show you how to start doing that right now. But before I go into that, let me simplify things and say that you've got the prefrontal cortex as your logical mind, right? And I'm simplifying it, but let's just go with it. Your prefrontal cortex is like your logical mind. It's where your reasoning happens. It's where your rationale happens, like you're thinking clearly and kind of logically. And then you got this amygdala, and it's actually the limbic brain, this lower part of the brain, the limbic brain. We got the hypothalamus and the amygdala. And that's the emotional part of the brain. So logical brain, emotional brain, right? Again, simplifying it because the brain is way more complex than that. But let's just say it's kind of like that, right? When the emotional brain fires off, that can happen when there's an experience that you have in the present moment that has emotional resonance or triggers a similar like emotional pattern to something that happened earlier in your life. Right? So one that's really common for people is let's just say you're having some trouble with money, right? Or you're getting triggered by money, your partner's spending habits or something like that, right? You have this real reaction to this experience that you're having in the present moment or anything else. It could be a social thing, right? You're going into hanging out with friends and you get triggered into like this anxiety, right? The amygdala is firing off because the experience that you're having in the present moment is akin to something that happens in your past, in your memory, that you haven't really learned to regulate properly. And so what the brain is doing is it's making a prediction, because this is how it kind of works. It predicts that this experience that you're having now that's triggering the same memory and emotion from the past is going to lead to the same outcome, right? And so let's say it's the money thing, and back in the past you felt like you didn't have enough of something or whatever, and then there was a real fear of like lack and scarcity. And so that's happening again. Your brain's predicting that the same thing's going to happen now. And so you're just really preparing for that. You're bracing for impact. Or the same thing, you're in a social group, everyone's having a drink and it's kind of friendly and fun, but there's something that happens which triggers you into a memory of like sometime when you were a kid and you got kicked out of the social group, or you weren't accepted by that girl or that boy or whatever. And that in that moment when you were a kid, you made that mean that like, oh, fuck, no one likes me. Like I'm a loser. I'm by myself, right? I'm different. And so this experience that you're having in the present moment is kind of predicting that what's about to happen is the same thing as what happened before. Again, people call it trauma, but it's more like your brain just predicting what's going to happen next based off the memory and the emotional stuff that's kind of stored in your brain that you've never really dealt with properly. And so you get emotional and it kind of floods your brain and now you can't think clearly. And so what we want to do, bring that prefrontal cortex online. When you were a kid, you didn't have, or a teenager even early 20s. I've worked with like 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, kids in their early 20s. Your brain is still developing and you don't have full conscious like awareness or control, right? Your conscious mind, your cognitive side of your brain is really not even developed, right? Like I've got kids and they just one thing to the next all over the place, right? There's no conscious like direction, you know? And so as an adult, you have that. As a kid, you didn't. So you've got to start to change these responses that you're having, these reactions that you're having, and stop living as like a child and start living as an adult who has actually the ability to control your mind, right? That's really what it's about. And again, this is not something that it just happens, right? It's like I often say to people, it's like you don't go to the gym and just expect to have a six-pack overnight, right? Or like get really jacked overnight. You know what I mean? No one thinks that that's going to happen. Everyone knows that if you go to the gym and you want to lose weight or gain muscle, you have to eat right, you have to train, you have to put in the work. But for some reason, people expect their mind to just be this like super powerful thing. But if we don't, and it is, but it is when you train it to be. Like it is when you get control over it and you kind of train it to be sharp, right? It doesn't just happen. But a lot of people have this like this expectation that I should just be able to be like so switched on. That's why everyone's complaining about ADHD and all these kinds of things these days. And you know, don't get me wrong, I think that it's real and people are having more like ADHD is becoming more common, anxiety is becoming more common, depression is becoming more common, even like people talk about being neurodivergent, autistic and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, maybe, but also look at what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, right? We're just kind of living on our phone. We're just absolutely destroying our ability to focus. Our dopamine is just like our dopamine system is just absolutely cooked. And we expect to be sharp and focused. Everyone's complaining about not being able to focus, not being able to keep their attention. But what are you actually doing? This is how I look at it, really plainly, really simply. If you look at your behavior, and particularly your brain behavior, you can see why it's kind of getting a bit fucked, right? Because there's no training in place. And actually, it's like just eating shit food all day, every day, or drinking alcohol every day, like every day, all day. That's it's kind of like just like looking at our phones all day, every day. And yes, it's unfortunate that we have this society where this is so normal, but this is why you have to actually be proactive about getting your brain into a healthy state. This is what I'm all about with Mind Launch, right? Training the brain to be healthy. Yes, we're living in a unique time. Yes, we have social media and our phones and distractions and everything like that. But that's all the more reason that we need to take responsibility for our mind and our consciousness. Because the more that we just let it to someone else, or let it to the device, or let it to society, we're living as a victim. We're not living as a creator. And so we want to live as creators, right? We want to start to reprogram our mind, regulate our nervous system, and be in control of ourself, right? That's what I'm really fired up about that, if you can't tell. That's what really excites me. Because even though we're living in this unique time, I really believe we all have the ability to live like that. Right? And that's why I'm doing this 3-hour workshop, right? That's why I do the work that I do. It's to help people take back control of their life. Okay. Now, I'm going to go through a live breakthrough exercise with you today. Now, this is one of the most profound teachings and exercises that I run with my one-on-one clients. And with actually just people in general. It's really good. So what I want you to do is take your pen and paper out, because we're actually going to sit down and go through a process now. So I'm going to actually show you something else. This is also on my website. If you ever wanted this resource or to go through this again after today, if you scroll down to the bottom of my website, there is a free training here. It's a 15-minute training, shows you why you're stuck and how to break through. And if you go through this framework properly by using a pen and paper to take notes, it's really solid. Now, I'm going to walk you through this today. And now a lot of people actually message me about this, and they say, holy shit, that was crazy. I've done psychology for years. I've done therapy for years, and I've never felt anything like that before. And I'm not just saying that. I've literally received like hundreds of messages from people saying exactly what I just said. Sometimes that's the catalyst. People are like, they do that and they're like, I got to work with this guy, right? So I'm going to walk you through it now. And it actually will give you a profound shift, right? Now, it is more helpful. Like sometimes you can get that shift by yourself just by watching the training. But as you guys are going to see, sometimes it helps to have like a one-on-one personal touch for this kind of stuff, because I can help to guide it. So I'm going to do my absolute best to guide you through it today and now. And if you have any questions, you can ask in the chat box and I'll do my best to answer them. But yeah, this is a really, really interesting training about understanding why we're having these experiences that we're having over and over again, where it comes from, and how to change it. So give me a 777, lucky 7, if you guys are keen to give this a crack now. Awesome. Cool. Should take about 15 minutes. Sweet. So take a deep breath, breathing in through the nose, into the belly. Let it all go. Breathing in through the nose, into the belly. Let it all go. And we'll do one more. Breathing in through the nose, into the belly. Opening up, letting go. Cool. Very good. Let's go back into it. So pen and paper handy, because we're going to need to take some notes. And let me just whip this thing back up again. Present. Okay, live breakthrough exercise. Let's do it. So the breakthrough exercise. Step 1, right? First step. So you can write this down in your journal. At the top of the page, you write live breakthrough exercise, or the exercise. If you've got a pen and paper, you can do it on your phone if you want to. It's better. I think it's better to always write with a pen and paper, just because, it's an act of taking a pencil or a pen and using your body, your kinetic energy, to put the pen to the paper and actually write something physically, helps you to create that connection between the brain and the body. All right? So that's why when anyone who works with me, I tell them you got to get a journal and a pen. So anyway, first step, identify the pattern. Number 1, identify the pattern. What is the thing that keeps happening over and over again that you don't want to be happening? So maybe it's like you're having and also that you feel like it's a you thing, right? Not a them thing, right? Like I could try and write something down about like my relationship with my wife and things we're trying to work through, but that would be not fair, because this exercise is not about blaming others. It's about taking responsibility for ourselves. So what's the thing that keeps happening in your life personally that you see as a pattern, as a recurring pattern, which is something that you want to break through? So write that down. And then when you're done, just put a 1 in the chat box just so I can see, okay, 1 is done. And if you have any questions, again, you can just ask, or you can unmute yourself. And if you want to just ask me with your voice, you can just unmute yourself and tell me. All right, cool. Samsung SMA556E is done. Someone unmuting? Gleno, you're done, mate? Okay. Aaron's done. Pandora's done. Okay. Cool. One is done. 2, unpack the program. What's the subconscious attachment? So the way that we are going to figure this out is we're going to ask ourselves this question, which I'm about to put in the chat box. When I have blank, I will finally feel blank. Now, this is probably going to start to feel like a little bit uncomfortable, and you might even have a little bit of resistance to this because your ego might say, no, that's not true. But I want you to write down when it comes to this pattern that you've got, what is it that you feel like you need? When I have this thing, I'll finally feel this way. So finish that sentence in your journal. If you have any questions, just ask. And when you're done, put a 2. When I have this thing, I'll finally feel this way. Awesome. There's something subconsciously that you have an attachment to, that you feel like you need. And until you get it, you can't feel the way that you want to feel. Again, subconscious. So you probably know that this is not true, but it's what you feel. When you're done that one, just pop a 2 in the chat box. And if there's any questions, just ask me. Great work. Okay, Gleno. Yeah. So it might be something along the lines of when I have nothing that I need to do, I will finally feel free from my anxiety. Maybe. I don't know. This is what I'm saying. Sometimes if I was working with someone one-on-one, this is where I'd be able to help you really clarify. But make sure you try to get it as good as you can. When I have, like, as clear as you can. When I have, what's that thing that you feel like you need? Maybe it's, in your case, Glenn, not doing anything. Like when I have no pressure to do much, then I'll finally feel at ease or calm or free from anxiety or something like that. Try to fill it in like that as a sentence, right? Okay, cool. Number 3. Ooh, has everyone still got me? My computer seems to be going slow. Safety. Yep, that's right. Yeah, that's a good word. When I feel like I don't have to do that much, I'll finally feel safe. Yep, that's good. Yeah, you want to start to tap into your feeling here, guys. This is also, this exercise is it's more emotional. It's not logical. So some of the things that are going to come up, you might be like, oh, that doesn't really make logical sense, but I feel it as true. All right. So number 3, where did you learn this? So number 3 is, when did you feel a similar way earlier in your life? Go back as far as you can. So number 3, the question you want to ask yourself, I've just put it in the chat box. When did you learn this, right? Understand the cause. So we've got a pattern here. There's something that keeps happening over and over again. There's a subconscious attachment. When I have this thing, I'll finally feel this way. Number three, where did you learn this? So you can close your eyes if you want to, or just try and very gently float back through your memory and notice, where did I learn this thing? When did I last feel like when I don't have to do much, I'll finally feel safe? Like maybe there was a time earlier in your life where you felt the pressure to do something. All right? I'm just using that as an example. But think about your pattern, think about your attachment, and then think, when did I feel this way earlier in my life? And go back as far as you can. Try to land on a memory. And just let me know, number three, when you've got a memory there. Pop a three in the chat box once you've got a memory. Like the earliest one. Yeah. So maybe three. Good. Awesome. All right. So you guys have got some memories. That's good. Cool. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go through a short little meditation. All right. And I'm going to help you guide through this process to resolve and break through any kind of energetic or emotional pattern that's kind of stuck. All right. So what I want you to do is just relax back into your chair and close down your eyes. So you can put your pen and paper down and just relax back into your chair. Close down your eyes. Take a deep breath in and let it all go. Take another deep breath in and just really relax the body, relax the mind as you breathe out. Now, I want you just to, in your mind, go through this process again. What was the pattern that you keep experiencing that you don't want to be experiencing? Just bring that to the front of your mind. What's that thing that keeps happening that you don't want to be happening? And step two, what's the attachment that you've got? When I have this thing, I'll finally feel this way. And when I don't have to do this, or when I've got this, I'll finally feel this way. Take a deep breath and let it all go. And then go to step three. When did I feel an similar way earlier in my life? When did I feel a similar way earlier in my life? And just go back through your memory to the earliest memory that you have. And just bring that memory to your mind. And now I want you to just check if there's any memory even earlier than the one that you've currently got. So just allow your awareness to gently float back even further, just kind of scanning for any memory that may have felt the same even earlier in your life. And there may be a couple, and if there's a couple, that's fine. But just choose the earliest one, the biggest one, the first one, the best one. And then take a deep breath. And let it go. So bring whatever memory that you've landed on to the front of your mind and just observe it from the third person. So you don't have to go into it, just observe the memory, observe the experience. Take a deep breath and let it go. And I want you to notice who was there. Where were you? What were you doing? What were the people around you doing? And when you're ready, I want you to take a deep breath, let it all go, and float down into the memory. And go down to your younger self, that younger version of yourself that was in that memory, and just get close to them. And just start to get a sense of what they were feeling in that moment. What was that younger version of you feeling in that moment? What was that younger version of you maybe not feeling that you needed? Was there any kind of emotional need that wasn't being met in that moment. See if you can get a sense for what you were thinking at that time, what beliefs you were starting to build in your mind. Take a deep breath. Let it all go. And just notice who else was in that memory. Who else was there? What were they feeling? What were they thinking? If you get really clear and honest, what was their experience like? What were they going through? And if there was anyone that wasn't there, but you feel like they could have been or they should have been, then where were they? And what were they experiencing? What were they doing? And we're just building an awareness and an understanding of what was happening in that moment. We're building an awareness and an understanding of what was going on in that memory. Now take another deep breath in. Come back to your younger self. And I want you to give your younger self a big hug. I want you to give your younger self anything that they may have needed in that moment that they weren't getting. Love, acceptance, support, compassion, whatever you needed to give yourself in that moment, I want you to give yourself now. Just take some time here to find some resolution. Understanding that whatever happened, it happened. And there's no other way that it could have happened because that's how it happened. And if someone hurt you, then they were only operating from a very limited awareness. They probably didn't understand the damage that they were doing. And you were just a kid, so you didn't know any better. You're just learning. And that's okay. Take a deep breath. And just notice how the other people, whether it's friends or family or whoever else it might be, just notice how they were just living their own lives as well. They didn't really know what they were doing. They were just trying to cope with whatever was going on for them as well. Take a deep breath. Back into your body. And now I want you to float up out of that memory. Whenever it was, wherever it was, just float up and out of that memory. And I want you to go to a time before that memory. And you don't have to get crystal clear about what this time was or when it was or where it was. Just go to a time before that memory where you were pure, innocent, childlike. And I want you to get a sense for what you were like before all of this stuff happened. See if you can feel that in your body. Take a deep breath. What were you like before all of this happened? What were you feeling? Who were you? What were you thinking? What was your experience? There's no right or wrong here. Just see if you can get a sense of your natural state before all of this stuff happened. And take a deep breath, breathing into it, and take a deep breath, letting it all go. Breathing in and letting go. Take a few more breaths here. And when you're ready, you can float back up, overlooking yourself, the memories, the people in the memories, overlooking all of it. I want you to say goodbye. Float back to the here and now. Come back into your body here and now. Take a deep breath. Let it all go. And now I want you to project into the future. I want you to imagine that something is happening in the future that would normally trigger a different response, that would normally trigger the same reaction. And I want you to get a sense of how you're going to respond differently next time, knowing that this reaction and this trigger is just coming from a learned protective mechanism or a program from the past. And now you're choosing in the future to respond differently. Just imagine yourself in a future projected image of this trigger potentially happening again. And I wonder if you can see yourself responding differently. Get a sense for how you're going to respond differently next time. Take a deep breath. And let it all go. And then just gently come back into your body here and now. Taking a deep breath. Coming back to the present moment. And letting it all go. Take a couple more breaths in your own time. And then when you're ready, you can open up your eyes. Take your time coming back. You don't need to do anything right now, but if you want to, you can take some notes. You can write down any insights that you had. You don't need to. Don't pressure yourself to write something down. But if you feel like you want to make a note or an insight of something, then do that. And then if you want to, you can let me know in the chat box. How was that for you? How did you go with that? Did that exercise land? Did it give you some insight? Did you feel resistance? Did you feel like you didn't quite get it? Just let me know so I've got a bit of an understanding of where everyone's at. And even you don't need to tell me about the whole thing, but you can just go, yeah, that was good, not so good, not quite sure. Profound, I'm crying. Just so I've got a sense of where you guys are at. Resistance and tears, good. My neck feels tight. Cool. Moving, releasing. Yeah. Insight. Realization that I lost trust in myself in those moments. Yeah. Yeah, it can be very insightful. So after we've spoken about everything today, right? We've covered a solid amount of ground so far. Just want to remind you that whatever you experienced then, if you developed some insight, maybe some understanding of why certain patterns are playing out in your life, where they came from, and maybe why they're still happening, because maybe there was a holding on of something, or there was a new belief system that you were holding on to that you weren't really aware of. All right? This is all that subconscious, unconscious stuff that we're doing now. And so that's a very important part of the process, right? What we just did can be profound, can be moving. That's the past. Now, as I've said a few times today, we want to come into the present and also create the future. So now we have a better understanding of what happened in the past, why things have happened like that, why we're experiencing what we're experiencing now. That's half the equation. The next half is moving forward in a new direction. And that's what we're going to do now. But great job for going through that with me, guys. And I know that it can be moving. It's very powerful stuff. This is like energetic work that we're talking about, right? You change these energetics, these emotional things, and if you integrate properly and you move forward in the right direction, it's transformative. So let's do that now. Step 4 is, who do you want to be now? If there was a version of you who maybe lost trust in yourself, who was holding on to something that needed to be let go of, or whatever experience that you had in the past, what is the contrast to that now? Who do you want to be moving forward? So you can write this in your journal. Step 4, create a new identity. Who do you want to be now? And write it down. It's like, I want to be someone who trusts myself, right? I want to be someone who takes action and does things regardless of, my fears. I want to be confident. I want to be calm. I want to be present. Just a few words. Try to personify the identity that you want to embody moving forward. And when you've got that down, type a 4 in the chat box. Awesome. Very good. And now, take your hand on your heart again. We've already done this today, but let's do it again. Hand on heart, other hand on your belly. Again, just really quickly, we're not going to do a super deep meditation right now. It's just going to be a short one, 30 seconds or so. Hand on heart, other hand on belly. Close down your eyes. Take a deep breath. And let go. And as you breathe, see if you can breathe into your heart space. Feeling your hand on your heart. Feeling your heart. Feeling your breath. Become connected to your body. And I want you to finish this sentence just in your own head. When I connect to my heart, I finally feel. To finish that sentence in your own head. When I connect to my heart, I finally feel. And what do you feel? What's the first word that comes to mind? You can let me know in the chat box. When I connect to my heart, I finally feel love. Awesome. I finally feel peaceful. I finally feel safe. Awesome. So I want to point something out. In step 2, we were unpacking the program. When I have this thing that I feel like I need, if you read back over that, then I'll finally feel safe. Then I'll finally feel this. Then I'll finally feel that. Now, step 5, we're connecting to the heart. Right? When I connect to my heart, I finally feel love. I finally feel safe. I finally feel peace. So you realize you don't actually need that external thing that you thought that you needed. You don't need that outside thing to feel the way that you want to feel. You can feel it in your heart. You can feel it within yourself. So that's step 5. And then step 6, what do you need to do moving forward? So give yourself one action. Step 6, one action to do moving forward to integrate this new program, this new version of yourself who feels love, safe, peace. What do you need to actually do now moving forward? Write it down. One action. And then once you've done that, you can write done. Awesome. Good work, everybody. That was the breakthrough exercise, right? Hopefully it was helpful for you, giving you some clarity on why this particular thing is happening, where it's coming from, the pattern, the program that's running the show beneath the surface, and also a new identity to move forward with, right? A new state of being and feeling to move forward with, and some actions to move forward with. Boom shakalaka, right? Now, again, all of this stuff is great, but you have to implement it consistently, right? You have to implement it consistently. One like little things like this are great, but you've got to turn it into a practice and turn it into a lifestyle. So I'm going to just briefly go over this as well, right? This is something that I use, which is called the levels of consciousness. It was by a guy called David Hawkins, and he talks about our levels of consciousness. He's created this map of consciousness, associated emotional states, what we experience, and then I'm going to tell you how to rise up, right? So let's say you're living in fear, right? Down here, it's a dark, it's a heavy, it's kind of a dense kind of emotion, right? And that can either lead to hyperactivity or else sometimes it's inaction, it's withdrawn, right? Now, you guys were talking about love and peace, right? That's up here. That's very light, very high level, right? And it leads to synchronicity and extraordinary outcomes, right? Now, we want to go from here up to here, right? But there's an important thing here. It's not about, when you look at this, you might feel like, oh, I want to be living with joy and love, but I'm not. I'm living with fear and grief. That's okay. You're allowed to feel things. Like I felt a lot of shame actually last year around something that happened in my personal life. And, that's okay. You're allowed to feel emotions. And just because this is dark and this is light doesn't mean that this is bad and this is good, although I see how it can be interpreted like that. But ultimately, this is showing the entire human experience. And feeling anxiety is not bad. Feeling fear is not bad. Feeling shame is not bad, right? Feeling sadness and grief is not bad. Feeling anger is not actually bad either. It's a part of the process. But what we want to do, ideally, I think, is to learn how to live with more courage, more peace, more joy, more love, more acceptance, more willingness. This is that effort, the intention that I was saying. When we learn how to come up the scale and live with these more lighter emotional states, we're going to experience more happiness and more productivity, more synchronicity and more extraordinary outcomes. That exercise that we just did was an example of how you went from maybe a fear or a sadness or a desire or something along those lines up into a higher state of being. And so when we, again, train this into ourselves on a day-to-day basis, right? It doesn't mean that we're never going to have shame or fear again, because that's not even real. You're a human. You're going to have different experiences. But what we want to do is we want to raise up the baseline. Even if we get it to just courage or neutrality, I'm a bit more balanced. I'm a bit more at ease. I'm having the courage to overcome my fear. I'm having the willingness to do what needs to be done. You're going to experience more happiness and more productivity. And you keep going with this stuff and you start to experience more synchronicity, more extraordinary outcomes, right? There's no shortcut. A big part of this process as well is learning to get to a place of acceptance, okay? So when it comes to processing your emotions, we're still in the regulate phase right now. I'm going to kind of go through this relatively quick because we've kind of, amazingly, we're running out of time. But what most people do is they suppress. So they suppress, they distract themselves, they don't want to deal with it, they avoid the problems, and that's really going to lead to negative outcomes, right? If you try to suppress this stuff, which is what a lot of people do, I don't want the anxiety, I don't want the shame, I don't want the this, I don't want the that, that's called suppression, and it actually just keeps you stuck. Now, a level up is expression, but this is still not the best thing to do. Now, a lot of people say you should talk about your problems, right? Talk about it. But sometimes if you're just talking and it's just word vomit, and you're just projecting, that's also not the best way to deal with your problems, right? Like if you're angry or if you're anxious and you're just kind of talking about it without actually learning how to deal with it, it's also not the best thing to do, right? It's a little bit better than suppression. This is why I really think that the talk about it model for mental health is kind of fucking really backwards. But it makes sense for a majority of people, right? And it's easily understandable, and perhaps it can be a stepping stone, right? It's definitely better than suppression, that's for sure. But ultimately, what we want to do is want to get into a place of acceptance, okay? And acceptance is I'm able to be at ease with all of my emotions. If I feel shame, I feel shame. If I feel fear, I feel fear. I'm able to feel my feelings without letting them run my life, right? This is what we talked about earlier, regulate and reprogram. We're getting that connection between the mind and body. We're getting that logical perspective on our emotions. We're able to accept things as they are. That's the aim of the game, right? So we're also doing that. And that's how you rise up. You actually learn to accept the things that are happening and choose to do something different anyway, okay? And when you do that, your potential is exponential. So that's acceptance. We have a whole thing around that as well. This is not super important, but just a bit of a visual on, like, I was talking before about mind and body, right? And spirit. So we have thoughts. So we have, like, let's say spirit is consciousness, right? We have our awareness or our perspective or our point of view, our consciousness, our awareness as that's a kind of like a spiritual thing, right? Because people still don't understand it. No, nothing really explains it, but we do have it. So it's kind of just this spiritual thing, right? Now, in the Eastern philosophies, they say again, consciousness is causal. Then beneath that, you start to have the mind, right? So this is spirit up here, and this is mind down here, your thoughts and your emotions. And your thoughts are really mind-based, and the emotions start to become body-based, and actions that, you're doing the actions with your body. So this is the hierarchy, right? Consciousness moves to thoughts, thoughts moves to emotions, emotions moves to actions, okay? Can I get that first slide to get a photo? This one? If you screenshot that, that should be fine. I'll also be sending out the slides and replay after this session as well, guys, just so you'll have all of this. But yeah, spirit, mind, body. Right?
The one before, if that's all right.
This one?
Thanks, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you're right. You got it?
Yep, got it, thanks.
Cool. Yeah. So this is how to rise up. It's like how to rise up this scale. Don't suppress things. And even expression is not necessarily the best thing to do, but acceptance is the way to go, right? And so you'll actually see 350 here, acceptance. When you learn to accept things, it's a game changer. You've probably heard people talk about it before. Maybe you haven't learned how to do it yet. It's a very important skill to learn. We've got consciousness, then that leads to thoughts, emotions, actions, right? Or another way to look at it, this is the way I kind of teach it, consciousness as awareness or perspective, then that impacts your thoughts, emotions, and then you do your actions, which gives you proof and evidence. And this is the reticular activating system. If you've got proof of something, it will lead to either a positive confidence or a negative confidence. I tell people, sometimes they tell me that they're really confident that they're not confident. You can be really, really confident that you're not confident, right? So the proof that we have in our brain determines what we're confident about. Our results and our actions impact our confidence levels, whether we actually see ourselves as confident or whether we are confident that we are not confident, right? Or that we're confident that we're not going to heal, or that we're confident that nothing's going to change. That's what I would call a negative confidence. Whereas what we want to develop is a positive confidence. And the way that we do that is we work on the actions and outcomes. And if we want to work on the actions and outcomes, it's better to work on our feelings because our energy impacts our performance. And if we want to get good feelings, we've got to think good thoughts. And ultimately, this comes back to consciousness or our awareness. We have to be able to create that blank slate so that we can then choose the thoughts. When we start choosing the thoughts, we start impacting our emotions. We start impacting our emotions. We change how we're acting and performing. And then we lead to different results and different levels of confidence. So that's one of the models that we teach, and then reset. So I'm going to just skim through this, but I am going to give you a resource that you can use at your own time around identity, right? In phase 1, we talked about the nervous system and how your brain impacts your body. In phase 2, we start to address changing your brain and how to reprogram your mind. And in phase 3, the idea is that we have a full system reset and you get into alignment with the person you really want to be and the life that you really want to live. So there's a model which is called the be, do, have model. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this. Be, do, have. It's a concept in self-development. The idea is that most people start by focusing on what they want to have, then what they need to do, and finally, if ever, who they need to be. The be, do, have model reverses that. So let's say, for example, that you have a really strong focus on wanting to have no anxiety. All right? You might start to think about what you need to do next, but if you don't actually ever do that and you're constantly wanting to have no anxiety, but you don't have it, you're going to just suffer because you're too focused on what you want to have. I want to have peace. I want to have no anxiety. I want to have this. I want to have the relationship. I want to have the money, right? And you're so focused on what you want to have. And maybe you start to think about what you need to do to get that, right? But it's a secondary thing. And you maybe never even think about who you need to be, right? We want to actually reverse that, right? The be, do, have suggests you start by deciding who you want to be. So you've got to get clear on your identity. Who are you going to be? Allowing that identity, that version of you that you're being, to guide what you do, and then you'll have what you want to have. All right? So for example, if I want to be a husband and a father, right? If I decide I'm going to be a husband and a father, and before I even have the relationship, I want to be a husband and a father. That's who I want to be. Okay, well, I have to think, what is the identity of a husband and a father that's really healthy? Well, I'm going to be committed, right? I'm going to be taking responsibility for my shit. I'm going to be present. I'm going to be communicating well with my wife and kids. Like I'm focused on who am I going to be? I'm the husband. I'm the father. Not I want a wife. I want to have a wife. I want to have kids. No, I want to be a father and a husband. And then if I focus on who I want to be, that kind of person that I want to be, and I allow that to guide the actions that I do, the wife and the kids are a natural consequence, or not consequence, probably the wrong word, but a natural result would be to attract a wife and kids because I am being the person who is able to sustain a relationship, a committed relationship. I see a lot of people these days with the dating and stuff like that, where they want to, but you can apply this to anything as well. You can apply this to health, you can apply this to money, business, relationships. But everyone wants to have the relationship, or they want to have the money, or they want to have the business, or they want to have this, they want to have that, but they're not focusing on who they need to be. All right. And that's it's a slippery slope. So we start with the identity and we start with the aspirational future self. You focus on who you want to be. When you're attuned to the version of yourself that you want to be, it'll become natural what actions to take and what to do. And then the having of the thing will become, again, a natural result. So in Mind Launch, we have an identity that is used as the North Star, and that is the conscious creator. A conscious creator is someone who is living with intention, taking responsibility for their life, and consciously creating their day-to-day experiences. I would consider myself a conscious creator, right? And the people that I work with, we're working towards becoming conscious creators. We are creating our lives as opposed to being victims of it, right? Now, some people will argue, oh, you can't be a creator of your life. Life is going to happen to you, right? I would say you have a choice. What are you going to choose? Are you just going to lay down and be a victim to life? Or are you going to at least give it a crack to wake up every day, take responsibility for your life, choose to live with some intention, right? And create the experiences in the life that you want to have. Every day I'm choosing the creator. I don't want to just be a victim to life, because for me, that just seems like it's such a shit way to live, right? And it doesn't mean it's always going to be easy. There's always challenges. There's always things that are going to be hard. But I would choose that hard any day of the week, as opposed to the hard that comes with just, you know, like cruising through life with no responsibility, or, you know, just taking what comes. I would choose to at least give it a crack, you know? So I'm going to give you guys the Conscious Creator Playbook as well. So you've got the MindOS ebook. I'm going to give you another resource now. Conscious Creator Playbook. This is a shorter one. It kind of ties in nicely to the identity work that we just did in that breakthrough exercise. So we see the old self, we define the future self, we train the body, we break the loop, and we live it today. So there's a playbook here, which is 5 parts, where you're going to get clear on that old self. Again, we're not trying to resist it. You want to actually get clear on that old self, on the old patterns, on the old programs. Actually get clarity on that so you can catch it when it comes up. Then you're going to define the future self, how you think, feel, and act as your future self, right? Then you're going to train the body. So you're going to actually, I'm going to give you exercises that you can do to actually train that into your system. Break the loop, right? So become aware of these triggers that are, you know, pulling you back, and consciously break that loop. You're going to have to do that again and again. And then live it today. Right? So it's a 5-step process. There's questions, there's activities, there's journaling in there. And I'm going to give this to you. Again, you guys have everything you need. Right? I have been quite generous with the stuff that I'm sharing. And so you guys have got what you need there. Right? So you've got the MindOS ebook. You've got the Conscious Creator Playbook. You've got the healing training, because I told you that was on my website. If you want to go through that healing training or that breakthrough training again, it's on my website. It's free to access on my website, right? Plus, you got these ebooks. You got this playbook as well, right? Now, finally, we are coming to the close. So how to get more support. I did mention that every month I take on 5 one-on-one coaching clients, right? So in May, I'm taking on a small group of business owners and professionals. So people who are ambitious. You don't necessarily need to be a business owner, but, you know, generally people that I work with kind of have jobs and are, you know, somewhat ambitious with their life, to help them implement the Mind Launch method, which is a step-by-step system. So in the next 90 days, I help you create a powerful new routine so you have a clear plan to move forward with, boost your ability to be present so you start feeling calm and confident quickly, and embody more peace in your mind, body, and life. So there is really only 5 spots. I know sometimes people are like, oh, is there really only 5 spots? There actually is, because I told you guys, I do one-on-one coaching with everyone. And so my calendar, it gets pretty busy. And so I can honestly, if I, let's say, you know, I onboard 5 new clients every month for 3 months, I've got 15 clients, plus I've already got a roster of clients as well. So, you know, that's kind of starting to hit my personal capacity of doing calls with every single person individually and working with everyone. And I like it like that. I've built it like that because it's what I can manage, and it's what actually gives me the most purpose, because I love working with people one-on-one, because it's where I get fulfillment. Okay, so I've put the link here to the details about the mentorship and the coaching program. If you would like more help, right, then that is there for you to read through. And there's a button down the bottom. All the prices, all what's included, everything like that is in there. So you can read those details and you can apply if it looks like a match for you. And I'll read through those applications and be in touch if you're successful. So again, that's that. Now, let me just talk you through what it looks like as a summary of today as well. Month 1 is regulate. So we work on the physiological layer. We regulate your nervous system to reduce stress and anxiety fast through simple daily practices, right? Designed for busy professionals. So you don't have to actually, it's like 20 minutes a day, right? Honestly, is enough. Plus every hour, 1 week, one hour every week of study is what I recommend, plus 20 minutes a day. So it's not huge time commitment. Then month 2, we work on reprogramming. So the mental and emotional layer. This is where we use subconscious reprogramming to rewire those negative thought patterns and eliminate the emotional triggers to build the mental clarity. We started to do that a little bit today. And finally, month 3 is to have the reset, right? So this is the identity layer. This is where you lock in a new identity with discipline, routine, and habits that support your transformation so you can live in alignment with your true self. So that's that. what's included more logically, like more, what are the logistics? One-on-one personalized onboarding call with me when you start. And this is where we create a custom game plan for you. So over 60 minutes, we map out your specific situation and we create your transformation roadmap. You get a chance to ask any questions you might have as you begin your journey. And we build out like a full roadmap for you. We go through and we start to measure where you're at now so that we can actually measure the success that you're having, build your personal goals, get clear on those challenges. And that's all done in the first session, right? So you're going to leave that session with a full roadmap and notes and a plan to move forward with. From there, we have fortnightly one-on-one coaching calls with me. Right now, these are practical private sessions focused on your nervous system regulation, emotional intelligence, mindset, and identity work. This is where I can help you more directly with any of the things that you're working through, right, in a private setting. You also get daily voice note access to me, right? So voice note coaching on demand. If you need anything throughout the coaching process, you can just message me or voice note me and I respond as soon as possible. It's always within 24 hours. Now, this is because there might be things that come up during the sessions, right? And I know a lot of people have, like when they try therapy or psychology, it's like you go do the session and then that's it, and you don't do anything until the next session. I like to have a bit more high touch accountability between sessions. So if you don't message me, I at least message you once a week just to check in on your progress. And you're also going to get the complete Mind Launch curriculum. So I've given you a few helpful resources today, but there's a bunch of other resources available within the community and a structured 12-week pathway to upgrade your mental operating system with the Mind Launch method. So that's what's included. It's a 12-week sprint, you and me, one-on-one, going deep, right? And again, 5 new clients per month. Normally, it's 2,000 a month over the 3 months. But for the special workshop offer that I'm doing for this workshop, it's 1,500 a month by 3 months. So you end up saving about 500 a month off the normal price. Or if you wanted to pay up front for the full 12 weeks, you save an extra $500, making it about $4,000, right, total for the 12 weeks. So coaching spots are limited to 5 a month. And yeah, there is a hard limit because of my personal capacity. And I like to maintain high standards with everyone that I'm working with. That's why I have so many good reviews. You know, like if you go through my website or a Google page, you'll see there's heaps of good positive reviews. And yeah, I build good relationships with everyone that I work with. So here's a few screenshots that I took from some of the Google reviews. And I'm going to go into a few of them now, just to give you guys a bit of an understanding of like the kind of people that I usually work with and exactly what they're struggling with and what I help them with. So Matt, he's a builder from Melbourne. He runs a building company from Melbourne. And he started with me, it was last year, actually. And he said he was stuck in a bit of a rut with ongoing anxiety and overthinking, negative thoughts. He had this weird anxiety with his breathing. His breathing would trigger him. Not weird, I shouldn't say. It's quite common actually for people with anxiety. But he was a very busy business owner, you know, and he's a family man. He's got a husband, got 2 young kids. And he said he wanted to sharpen his mind and progress with his mental health. And he said his biggest takeaway was the meditation and the one-on-one coaching directly with me. He's now feeling fantastic and looking forward to continue growing and moving forward. Matt actually messaged me the other day just to say he's down in Tassie at the moment, Tasmania, doing some jobs, and he's got a lot of stress going on with the business growth right now. But he's feeling totally calm, totally present, and totally at ease, able to let go of those thoughts really easily. So Matt has obviously had a great experience. Shannon is a mother and a wife here on the Sunshine Coast, and she was also running her own business. She said that she felt very stuck in a consistent feeling of anxiety. She was, it was starting to impact her sleep. It was starting to impact her relationship and her work. And after digging into the program, she realized she wasn't living in alignment with her values. She learned the tools that she can now use for a lifetime. And she said, through the program, I feel like I've found my true self again. I feel refreshed and in control of my life. And then finally, Tom, another business owner here from the Sunshine Coast, husband and father as well. He's got a really interesting story, actually. When he started with me, him and his wife his partner had just split up, and they were on a separation. And he was having some trouble with emotions, anxiety, anger, also substances. And he said he was completely controlled by negative thoughts and emotions. He felt stuck, right? I worked with him over 6 months, and we got all of that under control, right? He said his mindset has completely changed and he hasn't turned back to using substances since we started working together. He's more balanced, grounded, and in control of his emotional well-being. But more than that, I'm still friends with Tom, and his partner and him got back together. They got married and they've had a kid. We were actually at their the first birthday party not long ago. So just an example of the kind of change that can happen. And I love seeing results like that. So yeah, I've already filled 3 of the 5 spots this month just because, like, just people coming through. But there's 2 spots left for May. So if this sounds like what you're looking for, then the details are there on the chat box. You can, that latest link, you can read through them. And if it sounds like a good fit, you can apply for the coaching, and I'll be in touch with you on Monday, not over the weekend because, family stuff, but I'll be in touch on Monday morning once I get a chance to read through everything. So that's it. 3 hours, bang, nearly on the dot. So Q&A, are there any questions? If there's any questions at all, then let me know and I'll answer them now. I'm actually quite impressed with my timing on that. How did you guys find that? Was that helpful? I tried to be as helpful as possible. So let me know what you thought, and if you have any questions over the next 5 minutes or so before we jump off. Because that's that. Pretty thorough. Yeah, this has all been recorded, so there will be a replay, which I will send out after this as well, with the resources and stuff like that. Thanks, Josh. Amazing work. A lot of growth. No worries, Aaron. Yeah. Thank you guys for showing up and, being here with me for the last few hours. Taking the time out of your Saturday morning to be here with me. I really appreciate that. Thanks, Pandora. Very good, and look forward to implementing. Yep. Good stuff, Glenn. Awesome, mate. Thanks for being here. Any other questions? You guys can fire away. Nothing is off limits. I'm happy to stick around for another 5 minutes and help out if I can. Always the awkward one who's got to ask first. If there's anything that you want to know or anything that you want me to elaborate on, just go ahead. No worries, Samsung SMA556E. What's your actual name? If you don't mind typing it in the chat, just so I know who you are. You don't have to if you'd prefer to stay anonymous, but I always like knowing who I'm talking to. Your honesty too, we have to commit and implement. Yeah. Also, was your Instagram account suspended? Yeah, my Instagram account has been suspended. It's actually the 3rd time this week. I think there's something going on. It's actually a real pain in the ass. Yeah, it got suspended last week for no reason. It just said that something was going against my community integrity. But then I appealed the suspension, and they gave me my account back within 24 hours. And then it happened again later, like just the other day. And so I appealed it again, and they gave me my account back last night. And I don't know if any of you saw, but I was on there last night. I put up a quick story. I said, I got my account back. And then it got suspended again straight away. So I appealed it again. I literally didn't even do anything last night. They gave me the account back for the 2nd time. They reinstated it again for the 2nd time after 2 random suspensions with no real reason why. And I got it back. I posted one story saying that I got my account back, and then they suspended it again. I was like, what the fuck? Anyway, I'm sure it'll get fixed. I got some things that I can do to make sure I get it back. So, but it's just a bit of a pain in the ass. Okay, cool. Allison, yep, glad to hear you found that helpful. Gleno, you got a question? Can I ask one thing? Have you worked with people with chronic illnesses? Is that a mind thing? I feel like it is. Yeah, I have worked with people with chronic illnesses before. Yeah. And, is it a mind thing? I wouldn't go as far as saying it's a mind thing. Because again, the body, you got to, people get sick, right? You get illnesses, the body plays a part. So I'm not going to say, yeah, every illness is a mind thing, because I actually don't think that that's true. However, I do think that a good mindset and having clear thoughts and being able to train yourself into a positive emotional state, it does help to create more balance in the body, which can help with the healing process. So I do have people who come to me when they have health issues, and they're wanting to get a better mindset so that they can, approach these health issues with a stronger mind. And I do think that that actually helps a lot when you have a clear mind, when you have a regulated nervous system, when you have peace in your system. I think that it's a very helpful thing for healing any physical issues as well. But yeah, I'm not going to go as far as to say that it's like the only thing, but it's very supportive, right? So yeah, like chronic fatigue syndrome, POTS, people with like certain heart conditions, people with certain like neurological issues, like brain injuries and stuff like that. Everything that I've spoken about today helps with all of that. So I hope that answers your question, Glenna. Cool. Anything else, guys? Any other questions? Thanks, Allison. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Pandora. Thanks, Glenn. If there's no other questions, I haven't seen any come through. Yes, mind and body. Exactly. Like, yeah, I think that we need to have a more holistic view. And I'm not trying to rag out the medical industry. I'm not trying to rag out therapists. I'm not trying to shit on anyone. I'm just saying, I think that when we have a more holistic perspective on health, it's a better way to approach it, as opposed to like these very isolated pathways. And yeah, there's a lot of people who agree, right? Yeah, in the US at the moment, there's a big movement, the Maha movement, Make America Healthy Again, which is led by a guy called Robert Kennedy Jr. And he's massive on this. He's like, we need to take a more holistic approach to health, right? We're just not taught this. We've just got our systems in place, the traditional systems, and it is the way that it is. And again, I don't think it's necessarily wrong or bad. I think it's helped us to have massive progress with like longevity and health for humans. But I think that we could do even better, right? And when we take things into account with this more of a holistic view, it's the best way to go, in my perspective. Cool. All right, guys, let's leave it there because it doesn't look like there's any other questions. Thanks for being here with me. And I'll send the replay out shortly. If you're looking for some help, make sure you pop an application in and I'll read that. And we'll be in touch next week. Thanks again for being here, guys. And if you need anything else, always you can reach out. You can email me. Maybe don't try to get my Instagram account right now because you won't be able to. But you got my email. So sweet. All right. Thanks, guys. Good stuff. Have a nice weekend.